What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto was forced to pick a bride from the alien girls? If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. Class dismissed. Just wait till I call your name, come to the front to get your graded papers, and then you can go. A tanned man with a large horizontal scar across his nose and his brown hair tied back into a spiky ponytail announced. This was Amino Iruka, the teacher of one of the classes for the Ninja Academy of Konohagakure. The class in question didn't give him any sign of hearing him, instead all talking to each other. Yep, this class was done for today. Iruka knew exactly how long he could get most of these kids to listen. By now, there was almost nothing he could do short of extreme measures to get them to listen to any more lectures. It was smarter to just admit defeat, let them go home for the day, and then start again tomorrow. Even if it was only 2 in the afternoon. They didn't have any physical lessons today. Apparently 6 hours of lecturing was the most these wannabe ninjas could handle. So the class slowly emptied as he called them up to get their graded tests, and they then left till the class was almost empty. Uzumaki Naruto, he finally called. He watched in concern as one of the last 2 remaining people slowly walked down. Uzumaki Naruto was one of his most unique students. Apparently completely talentless as a shinobi, Naruto also seemed to have a obsession with orange. Not to mention his voice was very loud. Despite this though, Iruka couldn't help but sympathize with the orphan. Iruka knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that Naruto had had a very difficult life. All because of becoming a Jinchuriki the night of his birth. When Naruto stood in front of him, Iruka handed him the paper and explained, "Better than usual, Naruto." "Good job." Naruto just nodded and walked out with the paper, making Iruka somewhat concerned. The past few weeks, Naruto had been different. Less excitable, less enthusiastic, seemingly distracted at all times, although he was never the most attentive. If anything, he was the least attentive kid in class. Iruka was starting to get worried. He simply didn't know what to think. He knew Naruto put on a fake smile to hide his sadness. So what did it show when that smile seemingly stopped appearing? Was he less sad or was he giving up? Iruka simply didn't know the answer. Naruto meanwhile walked down the street, oblivious to his teacher's thoughts. He was instead looking at the test he had in his hand. It had a large C on it. Although still below average, it was a great deal better than Naruto's usual F, not even a close F either, an F. Naruto wasn't quite sure what to think on the grade. Normally a person would feel happy over getting a better grade than normal, but Naruto was split. Part of Naruto was happy, but another part was disappointed because he knew it wasn't because of him that it had improved. It was because of her. Sighing, Naruto shoved the test in a pocket before he started to run towards his apartment. Normally he would train before going home, but the past few weeks he hasn't. Not since she arrived. Naruto paused when he reached his door. He took a deep breath to try and mentally prepare himself before he grabbed the doorknob and entered. He walked into his rather small apartment. His apartment only consisted of a main room which served as a mix of a living room, a bedroom, and a kitchen. The one door led to the bathroom. It was a small apartment, and somewhat lower scale compared to most apartments in Konoha. Naruto didn't care though. He still remembered when the Hokage had given him the apartment when he was 7. After 2 years of living on the streets after being kicked out of the orphanage at 5, he'd finally had a home. He'd never forgotten the feeling of not having a place to sleep or go back to. Despite most people assuming that his place would be a pigsty, it was actually quite clean. Naruto had learned to take care of his stuff. Naruto's thoughts were cut off when he heard a soft voice call out, "Naruto." Naruto slowly turned his head to look towards the voice. He forced himself to not blush at the sight. Her name was apparently Momo Velia Deviluk, which was weird because apparently her given name came first and then her family name. Her explanation: she is an alien, as in not from this planet. Naruto really didn't even know what to think about that. Especially now. His mind was on different matters. Naruto sometimes couldn't help but realize how much Momo fit his idea of an ideal woman. Naruto generally found women that stand out to be more attractive. Momo definitely stood out. Her hair was the same hot pink color that had first attracted Naruto to Haruno Sakura. Unlike Sakura though, Momo's hair was kept short, only falling to her shoulders. Her eyes were a deep, purple color. Her face was so cute that Naruto almost considered it unfair. She was prettier than all the girls in his class, with peach skin that was clearly well taken care of, long eyelashes, a cute button nose, and full-looking lips. Overall, Momo was stunning. Admittedly though, Naruto wasn't exactly focused on her face right now. His focus was a little bit south of that area. Momo was well developed for her age. Naruto was 14, about to turn 15, and Momo was already 15. While clearly she wasn't fully developed yet, she was far enough along in the process to give both an amazing picture currently and hint at what she would likely look like in the future. This was enhanced by what she was currently wearing. Her outfit consisted only of a pair of modest pink panties and a white button-up shirt. The shirt only had a single button actually buttoned, by the way. This caused the top of the shirt to be open enough to clearly display the insides of her modest S, and the bottom was open enough to show quite a bit of her hips and panties. Along with this, her hair was frazzled, and one hand was cutely rubbing one eyes. Altogether it was the epitome of "why out of bed" look. 2 weeks ago, Naruto would have been blushing and stuttering up a storm. By now he only had a slight blush across his cheeks and looked away. Momo was a good actor. Anyone looking at the scene would be sure that she had just woken up from a nap. Naruto knew better though. Momo was just evil that way. She simply loved to see him flustered. Every day since she had started living with him 3 weeks ago, he found way too many of these incidents happening. Every day when he got back from the academy, she was always in a barely decent position. Once he had walked into his room to see her, sleeping, in the exact same outfit and the shirt riding up to just under her S. Another day she had been cooking a meal wearing only panties, a bra, and an apron. Another she had shown up in just a towel while still wet from a shower. Every day it was another challenge to his self-control. She claimed she just lounged around the house or slept when he was gone and was always surprised when he got home. For one, she would have stopped being surprised after the second day since he returned home the exact same time every day. 2. Girls do not just lounge around in their undergarments. Perverts may wish so, but they actually wear sweats and old t-shirts. 3. She certainly wasn't sleeping considering she went to bed the same time as him and always woke up the same time as him to make him breakfast. No, Naruto was certain. She simply spent the day wondering on how best to tempt and embarrass him. Naruto had long since stopped complaining though. It hadn't seemed to deter Momo in the least. He instead showed her the test and informed her, "We got the tests back. I did better than usual." "That's great. Good job," Momo exclaimed while smiling happily. Naruto once again had to look away to prevent her from seeing his blush. Why and hot her outfit was, Naruto thought that a genuine smile on her face was arguably more attractive. Momo chuckled thought before adding, "See though. Better, but still not exactly good." Naruto rubbed the back of his head in embarrassment before replying, "I guess. I'll make sure to try harder for the next one. And I'll be right there helping you along," Momo declared with a smile. Naruto blushed again. He tended to do that around Momo a lot. Certainly more than he had around Sakura. It wasn't even due to Momo's appearance either, although there were certainly moments where he did blush because of that. Instead, he usually blushed when she talked about doing stuff with him. As someone who was an orphan, basically without friends, and was disliked by the entire village he lived in, having someone eager and happy to do things with him was certainly a new, and pleasant, experience for him. He was snapped out of that when Momo told him, "I almost have lunch prepared. Just 5 minutes or so till it's ready. Sit at the table and I'll finish it." Naruto deadpanned to himself that this was another clear reason why she was setting up these why incidents. If she was surprised by him, why did she have a meal basically ready for him? Naruto finally just shook his head with a chuckle. That had been a flimsy excuse from the start. If she wanted to do this sort of thing every time he came back, he wouldn't stop her. He was a hormonal teenager after all. Sue him for secretly enjoying a hot girl greeting him every day in why and seductive ways. Naruto sat down at the table and watched as Momo hummed a tune while cooking. He also felt it should be mentioned that she had only placed an apron over her previous outfit, so it was quite a bit of entertainment. Such a weird situation. A month ago Naruto wouldn't have ever thought he'd be watching as a girl made him a meal. Even now, Naruto found the way this all occurred to be so outrageous he almost didn't believe it himself. 3 weeks before Naruto had been training by himself as night fell. Then out of nowhere he heard a scream from above him. He had looked up only to find his head colliding with some girls. Good for Naruto but bad for her. Naruto had a hard head. After a minute of cursing while holding his head, Naruto had looked to see that the girl had been knocked out by the unintentional headbutt. Not the best of meetings. Naruto had basically freaked out. People disliked him enough without people exaggerating the incident and saying he attacked a girl. Leaving a knocked out girl on the ground just sounded wrong as well. So he had decided to take her home till she woke up. Luckily it was nighttime by that point, so Naruto managed to somehow carry the girl to his apartment without calling undue notice onto him. He'd laid her down on his bed and started icing her head. After a few hours of this, she woke up. She had not been happy. Now getting knocked out by a headbutt and then waking up in an unfamiliar place would make anyone hostile, but Naruto still pointedly stuck to the fact that Momo had acted like a bitch when she's woken up. She'd insulted him for knocking her out despite it in no way being his fault and even called him a pervert for bringing an unconscious girl to his apartment. Naruto had little doubt she would have left that night had she been capable, but when she tried she ended up falling down when she tried to stand, probably from a concussion. After putting her back in the bed, she'd reluctantly decided to stay the night till she felt better. She fell asleep almost immediately after. Naruto had reluctantly decided to continue taking care of her through the night, since part of him had actually felt guilty. He'd then fallen asleep and only woken at 9 with her still sleeping. Realizing he was late for the academy, he had rushed out thoughtlessly without waking her. When he'd come back afterwards, he'd fully expected her to be gone. Maybe for him to even have an angry parent accusing him of assault, kidnapping, or even rape when he got home. Instead he'd walked in to find her sleeping on the couch wearing barely nothing. After waking up while Naruto was trying to control his nosebleed, she'd cheerfully informed him that she had decided to stay with him. Naruto shook himself out of his thoughts when Momo set the food down in front of him. Naruto didn't recognize it, but still quickly dug in. Momo was a good cook. There had been several meals early on where she tried to replicate Devolukian food with their products that ended badly, but the majority of the time the meals were quite good. She also apparently made sure they were packed with nutrition, claiming Naruto clearly hadn't been getting the proper amount of nutrients his body needed. The two didn't talk. Naruto because he was busy eating 5 plates, and Momo because she knew Naruto was too busy eating to talk. As soon as they ran out of food, because Naruto doesn't leave any leftovers, Momo grabbed the plates and put them in the sink. She then told him, "Okay, guess it is time for training." Naruto nodded. That had been a surprise for Naruto. The day Momo decided to come watch him train and then even help him. While she had no ninja training or even any formal combat training, she did have several advantages that really helped during training. Momo quickly changed in Naruto's room. When she came out it was in the unusual black and green dress that she had arrived in. The two then set off down the street. Naruto would have been running along the rooftops, but Momo seemed to prefer walking for whatever reason. Naruto didn't see why she would. Everyone stared even more than usual since the demon child was actually walking with a girl. The first few days actually had people try to pull Momo away and tell her that she shouldn't be around Naruto. Once she made it clear that she wasn't going to leave him alone, it actually caused quite a fuss. Apparently a pretty girl choosing to be near Naruto was unimaginable to the majority of the villagers. Now whenever they walked outside, they became the center of attention. Watching Momo have a slight smirk on her face, Naruto had a feeling she was just taunting the villagers by making sure they clearly saw her with Naruto every day. The two quickly made it to training ground 4, where they usually trained. It was a pretty unpopular training ground because it was mainly rock. Only a single tree stood in the area, with a patch of grass around its base. For Konoha ninjas, who lived in the land of fire where trees and plants were nearly everywhere, the terrain simply didn't fit what they wanted to be used to fighting in. This in turn made it perfect for the two of them, since as an academy student any ninja had priority over him for the training grounds. "Okay, you ready to start?" Naruto asked as he removed his orange jacket, leaving his torso covered by a black shirt. He placed it on the ground and started stretching as he waited for Momo to respond. "Yep," was Momo's simple response. The only change for her was that her tail, which she usually kept wrapped around her waist to not draw attention to it, was waving around like a snake about to strike. Naruto nodded and got into a ready stance before announcing, "Then, begin." Naruto immediately had to move his head out of the way of a bolt of lightning Momo shot out of her tail. He then had to flip out of the way of another. Soon he was constantly moving to avoid the attacks by Momo. This was one of the exercises they did. Naruto had been gobsmacked when he found out Momo was able to shoot a freaking lightning bolt from her tail. What sort of ability is that? Either way, it soon devolved into this exercise. Naruto had to dodge, and Momo's objective was to hit him. Although being hit hurt like a bitch, it wasn't truly damaging besides stunning a person for a few minutes. It was great exercise on evading enemy jutsu. Too bad it couldn't last long. Momo soon fell to her knees while gasping. Apparently those attacks took a lot out of her. Using them repeatedly like that was exhausting. Naruto took a few breaths before stretching again and commenting, "That was what, 3 minutes? Quite a bit better than the 1 minute you could last the first day." "Yeah, but it clearly isn't enough. You are barely winded, and I haven't managed to hit you once this past week," Momo complained with a pout. Naruto had noticed that about her. Despite not having any formal training, Momo seemed unusually proud of her abilities. She claimed it was part of being a Devolukian. Supposedly they were the strongest species in the galaxy, so her losing to someone who isn't even a proper ninja yet was a blow to her pride. Naruto just shrugged and replied, "Don't worry about it. We just need to work on your strategy with it. Now that I've got the speed and reflexes to dodge, your typical strategy isn't going to cut it anymore. For one, your tail can only fire lightning where it is pointed. So all I got to do is keep an eye on it, and I know where your next strike will go. 2. Spamming them isn't going to help either. I've noticed you've got a 2-second gap between each attack. Better than the 5-second gap 3 weeks ago, but it seems that all improvement has stopped. We might have to accept that the time delay won't get any better." Momo looked slightly annoyed when that was laid before her, but she still questioned, "Okay, then what can I do?" Naruto thought about that for a few moments. He finally plopped onto the ground beside her and started thoughtfully, "I think you have to not use it as your go-to attack. It isn't a particularly complex attack after all. Point tail, shoot lightning. We need to have you use it in more subtle and creative ways. Using your plants as the main attack while simply using that as a support when they are distracted seems like a solid, if simple, strategy. Maybe use it in the middle of a taijutsu fight, although you don't have any taijutsu training so that is a bit of a bust. Maybe you can vary the effects of it. The power, range, etc. That seems like a good long-term goal. The more variety you can give the attack, the more options would be available." Momo looked at him as she deadpanned, "And you are the dead last of your class, how? I hate books. You know that," Naruto retorted in annoyance before standing back up. He bounced on his feet to warm up as he told her, "Okay, call out a plant." Momo nodded and pulled out a cell phone. She called it a D-dial. She quickly pressed several buttons and announced, "Come out, Hari-chan." A very unique-looking plant immediately appeared in a bright flash of light. It looked like a large bush, even taller than Naruto, except it also had a face. While lacking eyes, it had a very clear mouth that it used to express emotion. Besides the main bush body, it sprouted half a dozen tentacles. At the end of each tentacle was a smaller form of its mouth. Experience told Naruto that those mouths were capable of spitting out small needles very, very fast. Naruto's eyes immediately narrowed and he growled towards the bush while saying fiercely, "We meet again, Hari-teme." The bush immediately gave an eerie grin with its mouth and actually cackled while the tentacles moved to point at Naruto threateningly. Naruto's growl increased in volume. He then turned to Momo and commented, "I see you brought him out again. Don't you think that you've been using him too much, Momo? But you guys like each other so much, I couldn't deny you guys the opportunity to play again," Momo stated sweetly with a devious grin on her face. Naruto's eye twitched at the clear lie. She was just getting him back for beating her earlier. Momo quickly stretched her arms towards him with a pout and added, "My legs feel weak. Carry me to the tree so I can watch." Naruto rolled his eyes, but couldn't help the smile on his face. Momo really could be so cute sometimes it should be considered criminal. Her complete willingness to be close to him also made it harder for him to resist her. He quickly kneeled down and slipped one arm under her knees and the other one under her back. He then stood back up while easily carrying her in a princess carry. Momo was quite light, and Naruto was surprisingly strong despite his short stature, although he had already grown 1.5 inches since Momo arrived and started cooking for him. So he started moving towards the tree. He stumbled though when he felt a sharp pain in his right butt cheek. He quickly looked at Hari and snarled, "Teme, did you just shoot me in the butt?" The bush managed to make some mocking gestures that it was innocent. Momo frowned as well and quickly said in a reprimanding voice, "Bad, Hari-chan. Don't shoot Naruto before the training exercise. Especially in the butt. I won't forgive you if you scar that cute tush." The bush withered slightly under the rebuke, and Naruto blushed at the comment. He quickly hurried to the closest tree and sat Momo down on the grass there. He then quickly pulled the spines from his butt with a pained grunt. He then turned back to Momo, who had pulled out a small nutrient bar and was unwrapping it. She did need to eat after all to recover the energy she used in the exercise. Momo had him buy the nutrient bars because of that. They were quick, simple, and surprisingly cheap when bought in bulk. Although they tasted pretty bland, Naruto had to admit they were useful when you were hungry. Naruto turned and walked back towards the bush. After Momo ran out of energy, Momo would always summon one of these plants to continue. Hari was her favorite to use, and Naruto had to admit the plant was a good training partner, although still a complete ass. It fired spines almost exactly the same as Senbon at speeds that most ninjas couldn't match. The multiple different tentacles also meant that they came at a pace that a single ninja couldn't match. He still hates the damned thing though. Momo paused between bites to announce, "Begin." Naruto immediately set off in a desperate attempt to dodge the continuous attack by the bush, which was taking entirely too much joy in doing this. Naruto showed off some impressive flips and acrobatics in his attempt to not be riddled with spines, showing a clear improvement from when he began. He had started out somewhat clumsy, almost as if he wasn't used to his own body, but these weeks had seemingly corrected that problem. While he still wasn't the fastest person, he had learned how to twist his body into awkward positions or execute seemingly out-of-control flips on the fly without losing his balance or momentum. He still wasn't entirely successful though. His arms and legs repeatedly caught several spines when he hadn't moved quite fast enough. The plant's multiple tentacles to launch the spines made it near impossible for him to emerge completely unharmed. Naruto repeatedly ripped them out when he could, with the holes closing within minutes, but Naruto's stamina wasn't inexhaustible. Just ridiculously high. Soon he was dripping in sweat and gasping for breath as he desperately tried to dodge the non-stop volleys. In the end, Momo was the one who ended it an hour after starting by announcing, "Okay, that's enough." Naruto immediately fell on his ass and panted. The bush just gave a mocking laugh before Momo pulled it back into the virtual space that was in her phone. Naruto didn't quite understand it. Naruto quickly stated between breaths, "I hate that fucking thing. Don't be a sore loser, Naruto. Hari-chan beat you, accept it. At least you are improving. You barely managed 5 minutes in the beginning," Momo stated, clearly enjoying scolding him like he did her earlier. "Don't care. I swear by the sage, someday I'm going to set that bush on fire," Naruto declared. "You might have a difficult time of that. Hari-chan's species have a special secretion coating their bodies that make them pretty resistant to fire," Momo sweetly told him. "Don't care. I'll manage it," Naruto retorted while pulling out the remaining spines in his body. As he removed another one from his rump, he mumbled to himself, "Little shit always seems to aim for my ass." Momo looked closely at his arm, where several holes were rapidly growing smaller. She quickly commented in a slightly odd voice, "I still can't get over how fast you heal." Naruto shrugged before admitting, "I don't really know either. I thought it was normal, but eventually I realized I just healed faster when other kids had black eyes and stuff after tough spars while I was fine. I've never been curious enough to find out why it is though." "Only you wouldn't question why you healed so fast, Naruto," Momo claimed while shaking her head with an amused smile. She poked one of the remaining wounds on his arm, causing him to grunt slightly from the pain. She quickly added, "Seriously. Hari-chan's spines are coated in a powerful paralytic. Even a couple should be enough to put a full-grown man down. Your species is likely more resistant, but not to your degree. Even the first time they only numbed your limbs after being hit dozens of times. Now they aren't even numbing the area around the spines enough to stop the pain. What sort of ridiculous body do you have to develop a full immunity to one of the most powerful paralytics in the galaxy after only 3 weeks?" Momo chuckled and just swat him on the head and exclaimed, "If you are so awesome, Then you can go straight to the leaf sticking exercise without a break. That's so mean. Don't make me do it, Momo. Naruto whined while trying to give Momo puppy dog eyes. Momo just chuckled again and claimed, "Don't even try that, Naruto. It really doesn't suit you. Now get to the leaf sticking." "But I've got it down now," Naruto claimed. "Really?" Momo replied with some genuine surprise. She quickly ordered, "Show me." Naruto pouted, but acquiesced. Soon after arriving, Momo had read through his academy books. She had been curious on why Naruto couldn't do the bunshin, and decided that it was because of a lack of chakra control. So she insisted upon him doing the leaf sticking exercise, the only chakra control exercise listed in the books. It had been a pain. Even though he practiced every day, it had taken over 2 weeks. Naruto stood up and took one of the leaves from the tree, since it was basically the only large plant in the entire training ground. He then sat cross-legged on the ground. Placing the leaf against his forehead, he concentrated a moment before removing his hand. The leaf stuck. Naruto opened his eyes and shook his head with the leaf staying on. He quickly looked at Momo and said, "See. I guess you do have it down," Momo mumbled. She quickly added, "Then tried to make some clones." Naruto nodded and let the leaf drop from his forehead. He then ran through 4 hand signs and said, "Bunshin no Jutsu." A puff of smoke appeared before clearing to show Naruto flanked by 2 extremely pale and transparent versions of himself. The 2 clones wobbled for a few seconds before collapsing. Naruto sighed at the failure. Momo poked one of the clones, making it disappear in a puff of smoke, as she commented sadly, "Another failure, but at least it is a slight improvement. They look a bit better and were able to stand for several seconds." "That doesn't really help. Iruka-sensei won't pass me without being able to create at least 2 usable clones," Naruto grumbled while kicking a rock on the ground. "It does help. It at least shows us we're on the right path with improving your chakra control. We just need the next exercise," Momo claimed while thinking. Naruto just sighed and shook his head as he informed her, "This is the only one in the books, and Iruka told me that he won't tell me any other ones. That if I master this exercise, I should be able to do bunshin." Momo nodded while thinking. That was true. She had read all the academy books from beginning to end. There were no other exercises listed. The library also wouldn't help, as the only books not restricted to the ninja session that had anything on ninjas were the academy books. She did wonder why this Iruka didn't realize what she had. The books claimed that mastering the leaf-sticking exercise should give someone Genin-level chakra control unless they had Jonin-level chakra levels. Momo simply figured Naruto had Jonin-level reserves. It was almost impossible based on what the book said, but it was also the only explanation. Momo simply figured that the teacher was overwhelmed with teaching an entire class to consider Naruto's case enough to figure this out. So they were in a conundrum. Naruto couldn't access more advanced chakra control exercises until he graduated and became a ninja, but he couldn't graduate until he could create 2 working clones, and he couldn't do that till he got more advanced chakra control exercises. It was a loop she somehow had to figure out how to cut into. She grinned as an idea came to her. She quickly turned to Naruto and exclaimed, "I got it. There have to be people who will give us more chakra control exercises if we ask." "People besides Iruka?" Naruto frowned and replied cautiously, "I don't think so, Momo-chan. There are rules against doing that for ninjas." Which was true. It was a rule Naruto didn't quite get, but it was true all the same. A ninja teaching an academy student who they weren't related to carried some serious punishments. Academy students were only supposed to learn the stuff taught at the academy or stuff taught by their families. Personally, Naruto figured it was a rule passed to satisfy the clans of Konoha. It was no coincidence that clan children were head and shoulders above all the other students. They were taught advanced skills from a young age by their clans, while most kids had to rely entirely on the academy. Momo wasn't deterred though, and she stated, "Come on. There had to be someone who would do it anyways. We just had to stay on the down low." Naruto grimaced at that. As an orphan who lived in the red light district, Naruto knew about the less savory side of the village. He knew which ninjas' tongues could be loosened for money or stuff like that. He quickly informed her, "Sure there are, but the majority would ask for money we don't have or something else we can't quite give them. Not to mention dealing with any of them tends to bite people in the ass down the road." "Come on, Naruto. There has to be someone who we can ask," Momo insisted. Naruto sighed, but thought about it. He didn't have money or anything valuable to give in exchange, so that cut down on nearly all of the prospects. Who was wild and carefree enough to convince to give them the information against rules, but would be more flexible on payment, because there would be payment. No one would break the law for nothing in return. It just couldn't be money or something more insidious. Naruto paled as he finally thought of someone. Oh God, not that person. Momo seemed to sense that he thought of someone and immediately declared, "Tomorrow is Sunday. You have the day off. We'll ask them then and work out a deal." Naruto immediately argued, "Are you really sure about this, Momo? I've heard some bad things about this woman. She's only an option because she is a complete wildcard. Depending on her mood, she might do it or stab a kunai into us where the sun don't shine. Don't even get me started on what she'd expect as payment. She isn't interested in money, but she's crazy enough to ask for who knows what." Momo frowned at that, but replied with, "We don't really have a choice though, do we?" Naruto sighed at the truth of those words. "I guess that is true. Since we have nothing else to do, let's get back home. Then I'll help you study," Momo stated, and Naruto nodded in agreement. They usually didn't stop so early, but there was little they could do now that Naruto had managed the leaf-sticking exercise. The two set off. The trip back seemed to pass quicker, and the two soon found themselves back at Naruto's apartment. Naruto sat at the table while Momo quickly fetched several books. She then laid them down on the table. Opening one in front of Naruto, she pointed at a specific chapter and ordered, "Start here." Naruto grimaced but looked at it and started reading slowly, often stopping to sound out words. The evolution of ninja combat is a very intricate and detailed process relying on hundreds of different factors. The end of the ninja warring states period and the First Shinobi World War produced shinobi that focused more on individual strength than teamwork or cohesiveness. This is due to the survival of the strongest mentality that reigned supreme in those days. This is showcased by the incredibly powerful shinobi born in that era, like Senju Hashirama, Uchiha Madara, Senju Tobirama, and Sarutobi Hiruzen. After the end of the First Shinobi World War, focus changed to producing large, cohesive fighting forces rather than having a small number of juggernauts. This change was dictated by the rising. Naruto continued reading from the book, with Momo frequently stooping him to point out mistakes in pronunciation or explain what a word means. This was the most humiliating part of his training, although it was also likely the most important. Just days after arriving, Momo had found out that Naruto was barely able to read. She had immediately set out on rectifying that. In Naruto's defense, it wasn't really his fault. For orphans, it was the duty of the orphan matrons to teach them to read. Considering those orphan matrons had kicked him out at 5, they hadn't quite done their duty to Naruto. The old man also didn't have the spare time to teach him to read. In the end, it had just been forgotten. It was actually that reason that first started the rumors that he was stupid. When he started the academy at 10, Naruto had found out that most of the curriculum was based around academics. When he had told the teacher he didn't know how to read, the asshole had basically mocked him in front of the class by saying he must have been too stupid to learn how to read when someone had tried to teach him. He then stated he wouldn't try to teach someone who was obviously an idiot. So not only had Naruto been humiliated in front of the entire class, but he was also left not knowing how to read while in a class that focused almost entirely on bookwork. Of course he would fail. That was why Naruto had actually tried twice to graduate early. He simply knew that staying in the class wouldn't help him at all. Things had mildly improved when Iruka had taken over during their final year at the academy. He was at least attentive enough to realize that Naruto literally didn't even know how to read, and professional enough to teach him how to read. If anything, that was the reason Naruto liked Iruka. It certainly wasn't the man's teaching style, since the man seemed to prefer theory to practical education. It was simply because Iruka didn't decide that Naruto was too stupid to read, and had actually taught him. That was all he did though. He was too busy to make sure Naruto could read well. That was apparently up to Naruto. He just made sure Naruto could read. That didn't work out for 2 reasons. 1. Naruto had developed an intense hatred of books due to his first 4 years at the academy. He did not want to spend hours each day reading. The other reason was something he learned from the old man. Apparently Naruto had dyslexia, a learning disability that made reading and writing harder for him. So not only did Naruto not want to read, but he also had difficulty learning how to read when he decided to tough it out. So in the end, almost nothing had changed. Naruto completely failed at any written work. Momo was very clearly set on changing that though. She insisted on him reading out loud so that he would improve and she could correct him. When he got too annoyed or tired of it though, she would take the book and read to him so that he at least knew the material. After 3 weeks, enough improvement had been made for him to not fail a test. After a few hours of him reading, Momo stopped him and told him, "Okay, that's enough for today. It's getting late. I'll start making dinner. You can take a bath, and it will be ready by the time you're done." Naruto's eyebrows furrowed in confusion and he quickly pointed out, "I shower in the morning? Plus, I never take baths." "Naruto," Momo said slowly while suddenly surrounded in an aura so sweet that it was terrifying. She gave a beatific smile before continuing, "Go and take a bath." Sure." Naruto squeaked out before fleeing. His pride and sense of masculinity will be hurting later, but at least he'd be alive later. That was just plain terrifying. Who knew Momo could do that? Once he entered the bathroom and slammed the door behind him, Naruto stared at the tub. He hadn't taken a bath in years. He always showered. Whatever. It might just relax him. "Your Highness, the technicians say they have almost finished decrypting the coordinates Momo teleported to. They say they'll have it finished by morning," a tall man with gray hair and heterochromic eyes announced as he walked into a large throne room. He was wearing a unique set of gray armor, and also had a scorpion-like tail. This was Zaston Deviluk, the best swordsman on Deviluk and the personal bodyguard of the Emperor's children. Finally, a deep voice growled out. Its owner was a small boy that had a unique mixture of cute and gothic features. His cheeks had permanent blushes on them and his eyes were wide and cute, but his teeth were rather shark-like. He was dressed in black punk clothes. And last but not least his tail ended in a wicked-looking trident. This was Gid Lucione Deviluk, the king of Deviluk and emperor of the galaxy. He quickly barked out in clear irritation, "I want Momo back here by tomorrow night, understand?" Zaston hastily bowed as he felt his king force a ridiculous amount of power at him to emphasize that it was an order. He quickly replied, "Of course, Your Highness. I shall personally set out immediately to retrieve Princess Momo once the technicians have the coordinates." "Good. Now get some rest. I'll have someone else watch Nana and Lala tonight," Gid ordered. "Thank you, Your Highness. I shall do that immediately," Zaston stated with a bow before quickly leaving. Once Zaston left, Gid was once again left alone in his large throne room. In the 3 weeks since Momo escaped, people had very quickly figured out that he was not in a good mood. Gid in a bad mood usually meant someone's planet was about to be destroyed to blow off some steam. No one wanted to inadvertently piss him off. The only person who would dare to stay around him for long in one of these moods was his wife, and she was off negotiating to try and ease tensions between several planets that might very well soon descend into war. Even Lala and Nana were avoiding him. While he would never hurt them, he was not averse to tripling their studies as punishment. After all, this entire situation was partly their faults as well. Gid took a sip of wine as he thought about the situation. It seems his daughters had all planned to try and escape their studies simultaneously 3 weeks before. That itself isn't that unusual. Lala makes weekly attempts to escape, and Nana monthly. They were always captured within a day. The problem this time was his other daughter. Momo wasn't quite as rebellious as Lala or Nana. She was more dutiful, although Gid could easily sense that there was more hidden underneath her usual persona. She usually just follows Nana's lead, although she usually ended up taking control to prevent her more reckless sister from messing up too badly. This time she didn't do that though. The 3 sisters apparently decided to all attempt separate escape attempts at the same time in a hope that it would confuse his men. Momo acted differently from Lala and Nana though, both of whom just hijacked some of the ships from the dock and just tried to hightail it. Needless to say, those 2 were caught within the hour, although Lala managed to decimate a squadron of his men with her blasted inventions first. Momo's attempt was far more cunning. She headed to the teleporter room. This would usually be a stupid decision, since the teleporter only teleports someone to precise coordinates that have to be input into it. Usually his forces would look up where she went, and then follow her. Momo was too smart though. She somehow managed to encrypt the coordinates she went to under a ridiculously complicated code. That wasn't all though. She also unleashed a virus into the teleporter that messed up the entire system. So his men couldn't track her coordinates until they were fixed. It had taken his best technicians 2 weeks to eliminate the virus and recover the data, and now another week to decrypt the coordinates she teleported to. Considering the complexity of the virus and encryption, and when you factor in Momo wasn't exactly the most technically savvy person in the galaxy, it became clear she had been planning this for a while. She likely spent months contacting people to create the virus and encryption algorithm, all the while ensuring none of her guards caught on. Months of careful planning and preparation in order to escape the watch of him and her guards. It infuriated him. Gid simply couldn't understand why his daughters seemed to insist on causing trouble. Don't they understand how valuable they're to him and the galaxy as a whole? Gid made plenty of enemies in the galaxy unification wars that would delight in the opportunity to hurt him by doing who knows what to his daughters. The number of people who would also use her to blackmail him or as a political tool was enormous. Then there are just regular dangers. She might be a Deviluk and can talk to plants, but there are plenty of dangers in the galaxy even without it being known she was his daughter. Who knows what could have happened in the 3 weeks she's been gone? Despite his anger though, Gid also felt a sense of parental pride in Momo. Although Lala was the daughter who arguably inherited the most of his ridiculous high power level, it was Momo who took after him the most personality-wise. He could sense the deviousness and pure bloodlust Momo was capable of. Comparatively, Lala and Nana were downright childlike. This was shown even more by this escape attempt. Momo managed to escape from the watch of some of the best people in the galaxy, even if they didn't always seem to be, for 3 weeks. Lala's current record is lasting 21 hours before being caught, and she was supposed to be the genius of the three. Still, the sooner Momo is safe under his watch, the better. It better be by tomorrow night, or heads will roll. Momo smiled as she heard the sound of running water while pressing her ear against the bathroom door. She had been afraid Naruto wouldn't do it. He could be stubborn like that. Secure in the knowledge that Naruto was taking a bath, Momo started making the dinner with unusual haste. She had to get it to the point where it would just be simmering for a while. That way she could act. It had been 3 weeks. The person who she bought the encryption algorithm and virus from estimated it would take 4 weeks to fully fix. Momo knew better though. Her dad would have called in the best to work on it. She's lucky Zaston isn't already busting down the door, but she knew it was only a matter of time now. So she needed to set in her plan to handle it and stay here with Naruto. Admittedly, this is not at all how she expected her little vacation to go. She had chosen a remote world that would ensure her father couldn't find her before finding the exact coordinates. She intended to spend her vacation wandering, talking to all the different plants. They could tell her what fruits were edible. It would be a relaxing vacation away from her studies, suitors, and trying to prevent Nana from getting into too much trouble. What she got as soon as she teleported was a headbutt from a skull that put Steel to shame in hardness. She then wakes up with a splitting headache, to find she is in some random house. She wouldn't ever admit it, but she had been scared during that moment. Who knows what creep had found her? She had been slightly relieved when she saw Naruto since he didn't exactly look threatening, but was still scared enough that she had tried to hide it under bluster. She'd basically spent 10 minutes insulting him. She would have left if she had been capable of it, but had instead had no choice but to spend another night to recover from a concussion. She had woken the next morning when Naruto had freaked out about being late before leaving. She would have taken the opportunity to leave, but she had been surprised to find the signs that he had been taking care of her all night. She had actually felt bad. She had been thinking he was some pervert or molester, but he had instead taken care of her in her vulnerable state. He also clearly hadn't been holding her there since he had left her alone. Looking back, she couldn't quite say what had driven her to stay instead of leaving. The best answer she could give was that she had a gut feeling about Naruto. So she had stayed, wanting to find out a bit more about the boy who had helped her so generously. It had been pathetically easy to convince him to let her stay. Clearly Naruto wasn't used to much social interaction, especially not with a girl as cute as her. A pout here and a few sweet words there, and she was allowed to stay. Since then it had been like trying to unravel an onion. Everything she found out about him just seemed to expose another new aspect or layer to him. For someone who at first glance seemed so simple, Naruto was an incredibly complicated individual. Like his intelligence, She had figured him to be a simple and somewhat slow individual at first, which wasn't really a bad thing, but instead she found him to be quite astute on many things. He didn't know how to read, and he had clearly never picked up a history book. Yet he had managed to learn to read rather well under her guidance in just 3 weeks despite being dyslexic. He was incredibly street smart, if not book smart. He was also a beast at strategy games. Momo was still hurting from when she taught him chess, shogi, and go. Momo wasn't quite a genius. She knew that, but she was very, very close to that level of intelligence. Yet she had been trounced in 3 different strategy games by a person who not only didn't know how to read at the time, but was also very clearly only half paying attention. There was also his tactical skills in a fight. He didn't like to think too much, but make him and he'll come up with some strategy to win. He had a shorter attention span than a 5-year-old unless you threatened him, but had a ridiculously fast learning curve. Clearly lacked a significant base of knowledge, but knew how to use what he did know like no other. It was infuriating the first 2 weeks. No wonder he was dead last of his class. No one had a chance of understanding how to properly teach Naruto unless they focused entirely on him for several weeks like she had. Then there was his social abilities. He clearly lacked any knowledge on how to behave around people. He was loud, blunt, and lacked manners. His instincts were spot on though. It took her a while to notice, but Naruto always knew when she lied. She could see it in his eyes, but he never questioned it or pointed it out. She had first thought he was naive and too trusting, but instead it was clear he simply chose to accept whatever lies she say. He doesn't implicitly trust, he chooses to trust. Then there was his hidden power. It took a few days before Momo noticed, but eventually she could feel something within Naruto that gave off a feeling of pure power. The only thing more powerful she'd ever felt had been her father. Momo might have felt intimidated or even scared of the power if it wasn't for Naruto having such a naturally bright and warm aura. It covered the other power just enough that she found it interesting and slightly arousing rather than intimidating. She still hadn't found out what it was, but it was just another mystery centered around Naruto. Despite observing and staying with him for 3 weeks, Momo still constantly feels like she's figuring out a new aspect to Uzumaki Naruto. She certainly isn't going to leave now. Not while being around Naruto is so interesting. Momo giggled slightly at that. Maybe this is what a crush feels like. Not really knowing why you like someone, or even when you started liking them. Just knowing you like standing by their side, and wanting to find out even more about them. She's never really had a crush before. With the food only having to sit for 15 minutes before being ready, Momo walked back to the door to the bathroom. She smirked deviously. Now she had to create a reason for staying when Zaston came to fetch her. Naruto sighed in relief as he let the heat of the water warm him. This was nice. Maybe he should take baths more often. He may only rarely have sore muscles because of his healing factor, but this was a good way to loosen them up. His bliss was interrupted when he heard the door click due to it opening. He quickly said with his eyes closed, "I'll just wear my old clothes when I leave, Momo-chan." Hee, not exactly why I'm here, Naruto-kun, Momo's soft voice replied with a hint of something else that he didn't quite recognize. Huh? What do you mean? Naruto asked curiously as he opened his eyes and turned towards the door. His voice drifted off when he saw Momo. Momo was standing in the doorway, a mischievous smirk clear on her face. That wasn't what caused him to freeze though. No, it was her state of dress that caused him to freeze. Or more accurately, the fact that she was lacking any dress. As in, completely nude. Despite the many incidents she had orchestrated where he saw in various states of skimpy or seductive clothing, she had always made sure to just cover up just enough. Clearly now she had foregone that. This wasn't the first time Naruto had seen a nude woman. He had spied on more than his fair share of the fairer in order to create his Oryoke no Jutsu, but this was the first time a female had very clearly chosen to appear before him naked. The difference was surprisingly great. Naruto felt himself blush heavily. Momo grinned impishly at that and popped a hip while holding her arms wide open to give a very clear picture of her body. She then asked, "Well, do you like?" Naruto felt like a robot as his eyes raked over Momo's exposed body, taking it in like he was taking her question seriously. Damn, what sort of insane genes or diet does Momo have to look like that at 15? It wasn't like she was insanely busty or anything. Her S were currently only large enough to maybe fill the palm of a person's hand. It's just that everything about her figure fit. Her legs were surprisingly long, and her hips had a gentle curve that drew Naruto's eyes. Her stomach was flat. Then there were the more naughty bits. The front of her vagina was visible. Naruto noticed that complete lack of hair. Is it because she is an alien or just because she hasn't grown old enough? Then there were her s. As stated before, they weren't incredibly large. If anything, they were still in the modest or average-sized category, but it was distinctly clear that Momo was still developing. Naruto had little doubt that Momo would grow at least a cup size or two larger in the next few years. Then there is how cute Momo's face was. Overall, it was even more clear to Naruto than it was before. Momo was a knockout. He must have blushed because Momo giggled before claiming, "Glad to see you like." That caused Naruto to recover enough to yell, "Why are you in here like that? Isn't it obvious?" Momo questioned with another giggle before informing him, "You've been working so hard these past few weeks, not to mention the fact that you've housed and fed me for the past 3 weeks, that I felt you deserved a reward." "Our reward?" Naruto stuttered out, already so many perverted ideas springing to mind. "Yep, a reward," Momo calmly stated as she slowly walked towards him. She seemed completely unaffected by the fact that she was naked in front of Naruto. She just calmly lifted one leg up to step into the tub, thus giving Naruto a prime view of her crotch, something Naruto was absolutely sure she was aware of. Now Naruto could have easily moved out of the tub. He could have easily put a stop to this all. He didn't for one reason, and it wasn't because he was wanting this perverted hentai-like situation to play out. No, it was something else. Naruto simply had no fucking idea how to react. Whether to stop Momo or let this play out. No, that was too simple a choice. He wasn't capable of doing anything. So he ended up doing nothing. If Naruto's mind was a computer, it would have been flashing, "System error. Please restart and try again." So Naruto just froze as Momo stepped into the tub and lowered herself down. She was now crouching, sitting on the area right above Naruto's knees. She looked at the mixed look on Naruto's face with a smile before moving her hands. Her right hand placed itself on the left side of his chest while the left softly cupped his cheek. She then cooed to him, "You know you look so cute when flustered like this, Naruto-kun." That somewhat brought Naruto back. Trying to control his blush, Naruto questioned while forcing his eyes to remain on Momo's face, "What the hell are you thinking, Momo? This isn't something to do as a joke." "Oh, Naruto. I'm not joking," Momo stated seriously before the mischievous smirk reappeared. She then added, "Here, let me show you." She then lowered both her hands to grasp his wrists. She then lifted Naruto's hands and placed them, before he realized what she was doing, right on her s. She then placed her hands over his and curled her fingers, making his follow and thus squeeze her s. Naruto's eyes widened at the feeling under his hands. How can something so soft still be so firm? Momo giggled as his hands automatically continued to grope her chest. Removing her hands from atop his, she once again placed one on his chest and the other settled on his cheek. Meeting Naruto's shocked and confused with a seductive half-lidded look, she grinned and leaned forward. The lips of the two met softly, which contradicted the spark of electricity that ran through both of their bodies. Naruto immediately melted into the kiss and pushed back. All through this the two of them kissed. Naruto had quickly become the aggressor, mainly because Momo was somewhat distracted by the pleasure his rough groping was giving her. Neither of the two could tell how long they were like that. It was when their oxygen was running low that Momo reluctantly pulled away. She was breathing deeply from the stimulation, but managed to recover quickly. Far more than Naruto, who was still dazed and mainly running on autopilot. The fact that she had mentally prepared for this was clearly making all the difference. Momo smirked at the look in Naruto's eyes before she started. "I see you very much like your reward, but as much as I'm enjoying this, I think it is time to take it up a level." Her words were accompanied by her hand lowering from his chest down towards his waist. Her smile widened as Naruto jumped slightly when her hand finally touched little Naruto. Without breaking eye contact with Naruto, her hand wrapped around his member. Thicker than she expected. Her hand couldn't even fit around it. Guess that means it's one of those thick and short ones. Not an issue. She must be more out of it than she thought though, since she hadn't thought she'd gone down far enough for that. Wrapping her hand around as much of it she could, she very slowly slid her hand down his shaft. And slid down even more. Momo felt her face heat up as her mind registered what this meant. Anko just snorted before explaining, I'm going to help you, brat. I've actually liked your pranks. It is good to have other people who don't give a crap about rules and public opinion. I like people who have some bite to them. Even Pinky has some good old bloodlust underneath all that fluff. Then you walked in here like a obedient little puppy. It was like Pinky neutered you, but you've clearly showed you still have the brass balls you did when you painted the Hokage monument during broad daylight. So I'll help you. Alright, Naruto replied with a shrug. Seeing Momo looking at him in shock and a raised eyebrow from Anko, Naruto clarified, I don't understand what messed up thoughts constitute your mind, and I don't really care. You are going to help me though, and I'm not getting sent to the hospital sans my privates. I'm not going to question my good fortune. Anko immediately slammed her hand on the table with a grin as she commented, see, that is what I mean. Normal people have to understand. They have to follow logic and all that bullshit. It's so boring. It's so much more fun to not question it. Just embrace the insanity. So much more entertaining that way. Momo palmed her face at the understanding Naruto and Anko seemed to have formed. No wonder her method had failed. She had been approaching this how she was taught to approach negotiations with a dignitary or noble. That had clearly been the wrong approach. Anko was clearly insane, or at least chose to behave like an insane person for entertainment reasons. So approaching her like one would a sane person was pure folly. Like trying to make a vegetarian eat a steak. That was her mistake. Momo had never dealt with someone so irrational as Anko. At least Naruto had managed to somehow communicate with the messed up mind of Mitarashi Anko. So you are going to help us? Momo interjected hopefully. That's what I said, Pinky, Anko deadpanned. Turning to Naruto she held out her hand and ordered, now grab my hand. Naruto raised an eyebrow before shrugging. He grabbed Anko's hand like a handshake. Immediately he felt like ice water had been inserted into his veins. His body froze at the feeling before he pulled away. By that point the icy feeling had gone through his entire body. He immediately questioned in irritation, what was that? Anko just rolled her eyes before replying, a sensory technique. I can sense people at a distance, but I don't have the skill necessary to properly judge chakra reserves at a distance. That technique was just me inserting my chakra into your chakra circulatory system directly. With it I was able to roughly estimate your chakra reserves. And? Momo asked curiously. Anko whistled before declaring with a grin, you got chakra to spare, brat. Way more than even me. In fact, it's downright ridiculous. Not really surprising considering, but still. I'd even go as far as to say that you have more chakra than anyone in the village besides Jiraiya of the Sannin and the Hokage. Maybe not even the latter. Definitely when he was in his prime, but he's pretty damn old by now. I thought so. The book said that for anyone with Jonin-level chakra reserves, the leaf-sticking exercise wouldn't be enough, Momo stated with a frown. I'm actually surprised. The academy teachers should be fired if they legitimately expect the brat to manage a clone, Anko stated with a shrug. Turning to Naruto, she told him in a surprisingly serious tone, I recommend going to the Hokage, brat. Even if I give you the next chakra control exercise, the chances of you managing to make a clone are literally non-existent. Likely he is already aware of the problem, and is going to use a loophole to pass you after you fail the test. Talking to him now will just make it simpler. No, Naruto immediately replied while shaking his head. He then crossed his arms before continuing, the old man has already done enough for me. I'm not going to add to the list by asking for his help or having him pass me through a loophole. I want to pass the test myself. Stupid, but whatever. I don't really give a crap, Anko retorted with a snort. She then pulled a paper and pen from nowhere. Her hand started flying across the sheet as she told the two, you'll be owing me 2 favors for this. What? That isn't fair. 1 favor. Momo immediately fired back. Anko just rolled her eyes as she held out the paper that she had already finished writing on. Momo raised an eyebrow and curiously looked over Naruto's shoulder to read it when he grabbed it. She immediately frowned before exclaiming, this is 2, I know, Anko finished in an annoyed voice. She quickly explained, I told you before. Even if I gave you the next chakra control exercises, the size of his reserves means there is no chance he could manage to make a bunshin in a month. If I give him 2 though, there might be a chance. 2 exercises, 2 favors. Understand? Momo nodded in acceptance. Naruto meanwhile commented while reading the paper, this is actually really detailed. There are tips, the mechanics behind the exercises, even explanations on the benefits of these exercises beyond the obvious. Of course, brat, Anko declared while rolling her eyes again before continuing. A lot of teachers give as little information as possible, so the student can figure it out on their own. Saying it teaches them hard work and how to learn and make conclusions by themselves. My teacher pointed out though that basics are called the basics for a reason. Everyone does them and end up at the same conclusion. It is only on higher level exercises that students need to work on independently. He might be a sick, demented asshole who I'm going to torture for years before finally killing him, but he knows how to teach students. So be thankful, brat. You'll be having enough trouble managing to complete those exercises with your reserves. No need to not give you any tips as well. Naruto and Momo both decided to leave the bit about her teacher alone. No need to purposely jump into a pit of vipers. Naruto quickly replied, "Oh okay, thanks for this. Your thanks means little to me, brat. I care more about what 2 favors I'll be able to wrangle out you. Make no mistake either. These won't be tiny, buy me a plate of dango, favors. They're going to be the huge, place this bomb under that old lady's house, type of favor," Anko informed him seriously. Naruto's sweat dropped before asking tentatively, "You aren't really going to ask me to bomb an old lady's house, are you?" "Fuck me if I know, brat. If one pisses me off enough in the near future, sure," Anko answered bluntly. She then added in a fake reassuring tone, "Don't worry about it though. Most of the old ladies got the idea after the 4th one of them died in an accident." Naruto and Momo both took a step away from Anko at this point. The idea of Anko arranging accidents on old ladies who annoy her is way too plausible to be funny. In fact, it might be prudent to look at the obituaries to see if at any point several old ladies died under suspicious circumstances. Momo quickly spoke up in a sweet voice while backing away, "Of course, we understand that you took great risk in helping us. We'll make sure to repay you just as much someday. Now we must be going." "Hold up, brats," Anko ordered seriously. Seeing the two nervously looking at her, Anko just rolled her eyes again in annoyance before pointing at Momo and claiming, "I want one more thing. You, Pinky, have to answer a question that is bugging me. Truthfully, even a hint of deceit, and I'm going to be marring that cute little ass of yours. Capiche?" Momo nervously nodded and said, "I guess I can do that." "Good," Anko stated before looking at both Momo and Naruto seriously. Lifting her hand, she pointed at them before questioning, "My question is why the brat?" "What exactly do you mean?" Momo asked in apparent confusion. "Don't give me any of that innocent crap. I am able to read body language better than you can read a book. I could tell within 30 seconds. Now answer the question," Anko ordered intently before adding, "Why the brat?" Momo sighed in defeat while muttering in annoyance, "Geez, I guess I shouldn't be surprised that you figured it out. Kunoichi are really scary. I guess I have no choice but to answer." Naruto was now annoyed by the fact that he had no idea what they are talking about. He assumed he was the brat that she was referring to, but he had no idea beyond that. Why him? Why him what? And Naruto isn't the type of person to keep quiet when he is annoyed. So he quickly interjected, "What the heck are you two talking about?" Anko just grunted before turning to him and explaining bluntly, "I'm asking why a girl like her is interested in a guy like you." Now Naruto quickly caught on. He had figured this was going to happen eventually. Momo hanging out with him was bound to cause a stir. It was also an easy assumption that others would believe they were romantically linked in some way. Even if Naruto honestly had no clue as to the relationship between him and Momo, others would naturally make their own conclusions. Someone was bound to dig into that sum. Curiosity is a powerful motivator after all. Naturally, Naruto angrily retorted about something else though. "What do you mean, a guy like me?" "I think it is obvious, brat," Anko claimed with a smug grin on her face. She quickly elaborated, "You're far from the most eligible bachelor in Konoha, brat. You live in a crappy apartment in the red light district. Your reputation is possibly even worse than my own, and you apparently have little to no talent in the ninja arts. So let's recap. No money, no family, no respect, and no future. Your only real good traits are your inhumanly large chakra reserves and the fact that your appearance has some good potential if you change the clothes and grow up a bit. The former could even be considered a bad thing. So not only are you not the most eligible bachelor, but a case could be made that you are one of the most ineligible bachelors in Konoha. Anko grinned at the pissed look on Naruto's face, but he didn't try and argue. Realistically, he knew most of what she said was true. He might be able to argue some of the smaller points, but the gist of it was the cold hard truth. As humiliating it was for Naruto to admit that. Smirking at his lack of a response, Anko pointed at a bewildered Momo before declaring, "It is the opposite with her. She's downright adorable. Cute face, plump lips, large eyes of a deep purple, exotic hair color, and a slender figure with not bad curves. She also is likely to become more full-figured when she gets older. Even the weird tail cosplay thing is cute in a way. She's a high-level female. Even more when you consider her bearing and manners. She effortlessly gives off the aura of a princess. I wouldn't go so far as to say she is the most eligible female in Konoha, since this village has an abundance of high-quality females like yours truly, but she's still up there. Even I wouldn't mind a roll in the hay with a piece of ass that fine." Momo blushed at the blatant compliments, not to mention the final statement. Naruto just looked at Momo. Nothing Anko had said was something he hadn't already considered before. 3 weeks of living with Momo had very clearly drilled into Naruto's head that Momo was about as close to a perfect female specimen he'd ever seen. It was another thing to hear it from someone else though, instead of just thinking it though. "So I just don't get it. She could easily find, seduce, and become involved with any sort of guy she wants. Money, fame, looks, nobility, or power. None of it is out of her reach. So just don't get why she is interacting with you, who has none of those things," Anko stated bluntly. She stood up and looked Momo in the eyes as she continued, "So I want to know. Why him, who is so very clearly below your level?" Momo just stared back at Anko impassively while both Anko and Naruto waited for her answer. Honestly, Naruto couldn't claim that he wasn't interested in hearing her answer. He'd always simply accepted the situation with Momo. He just didn't understand social interactions. He didn't want to make a mistake or anything, so he let Momo set the pace. Her actions yesterday had left him thoroughly confused though, so he wasn't going to turn down an opportunity to have Momo clearly clarify where things stand. "What a tedious and redundant question," Momo stated bluntly, actually surprising Naruto and Anko. Momo didn't look nervous or hesitant at all. She looked bored. Without hesitation, he grabbed Naruto's hand. Intertwining their fingers, she gave the baffled Naruto a warm smile before turning to an amused Anko before answering confidently, "You say you want to know why I chose Naruto. The truth is that I didn't choose him. I didn't simply look at a bunch of guys and decide which one I liked. I could give you 100 reasons why I like Naruto, but all of them aren't the reason why. I can't point to a single reason why I like him. I just do. It's as simple as that. I didn't think about whether he had money, or if he had good career prospects, or if he had power. I have no need to even consider such things. I just wanted someone I could genuinely say I cared about, and Naruto has fulfilled and exceeded my desires in that criteria 1,000 times over." Quote, Naruto blushed heavily hearing Momo speak. The meaning behind that was very clear. There was no wiggle room in that statement. That was a straight-on confession. Meeting her eyes, Naruto could practically feel the truth of what she had said before. Momo actually blushed lightly, no doubt feeling at least some embarrassment about what she had just said. The two didn't say anything, and their faces slowly approached each other. "Yuhu, have you two forgotten about me still being here, or are you just going to go all sappy and make out in front of me?" Anko interjected, making both Naruto and Momo gain irritated expressions. Way to ruin the moment. Momo turned to face Anko before continuing, clearly not happy with her interruption, "And I don't appreciate you implying that Naruto is a subclass guy. Someone who isn't even close to him has no right to say such a thing. I've gotten closer to him than anyone else in 3 weeks, and I found out the truth. No matter what it appears on the surface, there is so much hidden potential to Naruto that even I can't fully comprehend it, and in a few years everyone will be able to see it. When that day comes, I'm going to laugh when people like you are ripping your hair out for not noticing earlier. Lamenting your flawed idea that Naruto isn't a desirable guy. Ouch, Pinky. That really hurt me. Right here, in the void where my heart is supposed to be," Anko deadpanned while poking her left. Momo just looked at Anko impassively, finally asking, "So sorry about that." Now if that is all, may we please leave? Yeah, your answer made me sick from all the sentimental crap, but I can tell you're being honest. Now leave. I'm done here, and want to eat more dango. You already know what I do to people that interrupt my dango time. Don't make me bring out Stabby, Anko told them, already paying more attention to signaling another plate of dango than them. You didn't have to tell Naruto or Momo twice. The two quickly fled the restaurant, not stopping holding hands the entire time. When they finally got back into the open, Naruto asked, "See why I was hesitant about talking to her?" "Oh yeah, I definitely understand. I don't think I've ever met a person so messed up in the head, at least she was hot. It makes it easier to talk to someone like her when you can stop listening in favor of imagining her naked," Momo stated nonchalantly. She said that so casually that it took several moments for Naruto to really absorb what she just said. Naruto just let Momo drag him by their intertwined hands in favor of staring at the back of her head with wide eyes. Was she serious or was she just teasing him? She had to know what statements like that did to him. Oh well. Naruto knew there was almost no chance for him to successfully understand the motivations behind all of Momo's actions. For now he just succumbed to all the wonderful images and fantasies her last statement had provoked in his mind. Naruto flipped as the bark exploded underneath his feet, making sure to land on his feet. He had already felt what it felt like to fall on his head when falling at the beginning, and he had no desire to have a repeat. He quickly dropped to a knee. Trying to moderate his heavy breathing, he looked up at the tree which he had been running up. The entire bottom half of it was littered with marks from where the bark had exploded out. This was the first exercise Anko had given him. Tree climbing. She had also given him an exercise called water walking. Apparently they were the genin level chakra control exercises. Once a genin has mastered both, it is generally thought that they at least have the chakra control necessary to be considered for promotion to chunin. Tree climbing was split into two different parts to fully master it. The first part was running up the tree, and the second part was walking up the tree. The first part was focused on learning to more easily control your chakra by keeping a steady flow of chakra to your feet to enable them to stick to the bark of the tree. The second focused on doing that while simultaneously enhancing one's core muscles with chakra. Ninjas might be stronger than normal civilians, but that doesn't mean they can stand horizontal on a tree without chakra enhancement. Running up the tree first lessened the chance of back injury while allowing the genin to focus entirely on keeping the chakra to their feet. It was frustratingly difficult. It sounded easy, but so wasn't. Naruto had found the correct amount of chakra to stick to the tree easily, but he simply couldn't control his chakra well enough to keep using that amount. After a few seconds he kept overloading the chakra stream, causing the bark to explode under his feet. He had been working on it for almost 5 hours now, but he'd only managed to go about 20 feet up the rather small tree that stood in training ground 4. It was pathetic in his opinion, considering Anko said that one had to easily be able to walk up a 100-foot tree to claim to have mastered the exercise. That's enough for now, Naruto, Momo called from the small spot of grass she was currently sitting in. Momo was looking somewhat more worn than usual. She had also tried the exercise, using her species type of energy. She had even more trouble than Naruto. The bark just wouldn't not explode under her feet, and she had been exhausted after 20 minutes. Since then she'd been trying to recover. Naruto growled though while arguing without his sight leaving the tree, "Come on, Momo. I'm finally making some progress here." "Exactly. Anko already wrote about this," Momo retorted without budging. Naruto sighed in defeat at that. That was true. Anko had written about how the larger one's reserves, the harder it is to control them. That is why it is so hard for Naruto. She also mentioned that doing the exercise for too long would result in chakra exhaustion, which actually might make the exercise easier for a time. If Naruto spent 12 hours doing this till he exhausted 90% of his chakra, he might be able to get to the top of the tree. However, when he comes back tomorrow with his reserves fully recovered, he wouldn't be able to do it again. One had to manage the exercise with their chakra reserves full, otherwise they wouldn't have truly mastered it. Most genin apparently only did this exercise for up to half an hour a day for weeks at a time to ensure they don't exhaust themselves. 5 hours is probably too much as it is. Alright, I guess you're right, Naruto reluctantly admitted. Relaxing his body and forcing his gaze away from the tree, Naruto turned and walked over to the patch of grass where Momo was sitting. Plopping himself down, Naruto turned to Momo before asking in concern, "Are you feeling better now?" Momo gave a small smile before replying reassuringly, "Still a bit tired, but nothing a good night of sleep won't fix." "That's good, but you seem to be having just as much trouble with this exercise as me," Naruto pointed out curiously. Momo shrugged before easily explaining, "It's because I'm a Devolukian. Use of our internal energy is easier for us than it is for your species to use chakra, but it comes with its own drawbacks. Not only is our control of it usually limited to using it to increase our physical prowess, but our energy is also more potent than your species' chakra. It's even worse for me. Because my dad is because my dad is really strong, I've inherited some of his strength. Few Devolukians are capable of shooting attacks from our tails like I am, and even then they usually require years of training to do so. My energy is also far more potent than the average Devolukian. It isn't even a matter of controlling my energy properly like it is you, but simply that my energy is so potent the bark is exploding under my feet. Either I have to figure out how to better diffuse my energy throughout the bark under my feet so that it doesn't overload it, or I have to somehow lessen the potency of my energy. I'm sure I'll manage it eventually, but it will take a while. I have far less energy than you, so I can't go at it for hours like you can." "I see," Naruto muttered thoughtfully. By now Naruto had accepted that Momo was an alien. She simply talked about it like it was a fact, and it did fit. The tail, the whole lightning from the tail thing, and plenty of other stuff. It was just so weird to think about that Naruto usually shoved it to the side. Naruto soon turned to Momo and exclaimed, "We haven't actually talked about that too much, have we? You obviously know about my species and culture, but I don't know about yours. Tell me about Devolukians? I also heard mention of your dad in there. You've not talked a lot about your family much either." Momo looked somewhat surprised at his line of questioning, but after a moment of thought she shrugged and answered, "Sure, why not? Where to start? I guess starting with some basic knowledge about the galaxy is most important. There are hundreds of planets throughout the galaxy that boast intelligent species. Many species have their own internal energy, their version of chakra. That is where your species along with Devolukians differ from other races. For most species, only the elite or a small number of warriors are capable of utilizing their energy. Even then, the results aren't too significant. Honestly, I'm shocked by how powerful your people are. Many species have singular abilities, like manipulating a certain element, transforming, telepathy, etc. Never have I heard of a species that is capable of doing all that just through training. It is quite amazing. Devolukians mainly use our energy for reinforcing our physical abilities, to the point it is almost subconscious. Due to all these differences and many species wanting to prove themselves superior, things were not always so peaceful. Wars were constant. That changed though with the initiation of the Galaxy Unification Wars. Devolukians were always regarded as the strongest species in the galaxy, due to our near instinctual use of our energy. When a new king took the throne for Devoluk, he looked at the galaxy and declared it unacceptable. He set out to unify the galaxy, and with the strength of the Devolukian people he succeeded. He destroyed those species who were set on destroying those weaker than them, defeated and subjugated those who fought against him, and offered protection to those who couldn't protect themselves. It was not easy, but he succeeded. The war ended about 10 years ago. That isn't to say there aren't problems. A galaxy-spanning empire is sure to have problems. Some officials are corrupt, crime is always a problem on Outer Rim worlds, and some species won't accept the rule of Devoluk or won't give up their feuds with other species. It is still an improvement over how the galaxy used to be though, even if there is still a long way to go. "Damn, your species must be beasts to take over the entire galaxy," Naruto commented with a wide grin. Momo giggled softly before claiming, "I'm not actually so sure anymore. I would have agreed with you before coming here, but as I said before, I'm amazed by your species as well. If you discount our technological superiority, it isn't so unreasonable as to claim your species would match or even surpass the combat prowess of Devolukians." "Really? Sweet, I guess," Naruto replied, unsure of how he should respond. "Not much more to tell about Devolukians that you probably don't already know. We have tails, although they can come in many different varieties, and the tails of females are incredibly sensitive," Momo claimed, subtly telling Naruto of that fact. Naruto gave no sign that he cared about that piece of information, causing Momo to sigh in disappointment. In truth, Naruto tucked that piece of information away for later. So I guess I should start talking about my family. Both my parents are alive, and I have two older sisters, one of who is my twin. I'll start with Daddy. He is, probably the strongest Devolukian to have ever lived. A true freak of nature. He is to the average Devolukian as your Sage of Six Paths was to a civilian of that time. So he is rather important in the government. Momo carefully lied before continuing. Honestly, he isn't exactly the best role model. He's lazy, arrogant, reckless, violent, bloodthirsty, and incredibly perverted. No offense, but that is not what I expected the man who raised you to be like, Naruto confessed. I can see why you would say that, Momo stated while trying to hide her blush. Truthfully, she's the one who likely follows her father in personality. Lala is way too childish to even be compared to their father personality-wise, and Nana only really inherited his recklessness. Momo, on the other hand, seems to follow in his footsteps in regard to bloodlust, deviousness, and lustful behavior. Even if she carefully hid the first two and was careful in who she showed the last two. Coughing, she quickly continued, that might be because he really didn't raise us much. I have very few memories of him when I was younger. He was always in the thick of the fighting during the war. We were mainly raised by servants in an isolated castle. Naruto frowned before hesitantly telling her, not exactly what I pictured families to be like. Momo shrugged without a care before replying, every family is different. Don't think too bad of him by what I've told you though. Despite everything, Daddy usually does what he believes is best, even if he is very bad at conveying that to us. Naruto nodded in understanding. Momo smiled to herself as she continued, next is my mother. She's widely regarded as the most beautiful woman in the galaxy. That explains so much, Naruto grumbled softly to himself. Although not softly enough for Momo to miss it. Being the daughter of the most beautiful women in the world would almost certainly explain how ridiculously pretty Momo was. That is true. All three of his sisters have been said to have inherited her beauty, although Nana a little bit less so in a certain department, Momo stated with a smile. Partly at the fact that she knew Naruto found her physically appealing, and partly at the thought of Nana's lacking bust. It was so fun to tease her sister. Momo almost continued on that topic seeing Naruto blush, but eventually decided to continue with, that isn't all there is to Mama though. If my dad is the warrior, she's the diplomat. She always knows what to say to calm people down and to fix problems. She's almost constantly away conducting negotiations or organizing treaties. She always makes sure to call weekly though to talk. Even here while you are on vacation? Naruto asked curiously. That had been what she had told Naruto. That she had finally managed to convince her parents to let her have a vacation. That she had meant to study the plants here before this whole business with Naruto had come about. She knew he had his suspicions, but he never pressed her thankfully. Momo nodded and pulled out a telephone. She then explained, yep. She calls me every week or so to check in. I even told her about you. She's eager to meet you, although it will likely be a long time before she can manage the time off to come here. All she said there was actually true. Momo wasn't stupid. She wasn't going to go 3 weeks to a place she'd never been without being to contact at least someone. After making sure her phone wasn't traceable, Momo had then given her number to her mom and her alone. That way the two could keep in touch. Her mom hadn't been happy about Momo's plan to run off, but had eventually relented when Momo explained her precautions. Since then Momo had been updating her mom on her situation and her relationship with Naruto. Her mom had been delighted to hear about Momo finding someone she liked. Momo even told her the plan she had to work around her father. Her mom had then given her agreement with the plan to stay with Naruto, amused both at Momo's deviousness and the fact that Gid was being set up. There wasn't anything Momo didn't trust her mom with. Naruto nodded and asked, what about your sisters? Momo winced, realizing that talking about her relationship with her mom had probably bothered him slightly. Momo quickly explained, well, as you know, I have 2 sisters. I am the youngest. My older sister, Lala, is 17 right now. She's actually a genius. She can make inventions easier than I can make a meal, even if they tend to malfunction or serve no real purpose. Otherwise, Lala can be described with one word. Childish. She plays pranks, rarely takes things seriously, and seems totally incapable of feeling negative emotions. She can definitely be a handful, but she's a bright and sunny handful. Don't underestimate her though. Of us three, Lala was the one to inherit the most pure power from Papa. She's even capable of shooting beams of pure energy from her tail, Momo informed him seriously. Pure energy? Naruto asked with a raised eyebrow. Momo nodded before clarifying, you know how I shoot lightning from my tail. There are many different types of blasts we can do. The most powerful is pure energy. To do that requires so much raw power that even I can't do it, but Lala has effortlessly been able to do it since she was a child. She once destroyed the west wing of our castle when a bug scared her and she packed so much energy into a scream that she destroyed the stone around her. Naruto let out an awe. Destroying stone with a scream. Totally badass. Momo chuckled at his response and nodded before telling him, I know. Luckily, Lala is too kind a person to really use that stuff. She never really trains or even desires to do that stuff. She usually only does it on accident when she is worked up over something. Then there is my older twin, Nana. Nana is a bit insecure since she hasn't quite taken after our mother as much in the looks department as Lala or I, although she tries not to show it. She usually compensates by being somewhat brash and reckless. She nice underneath all her bluster though. She has the ability to talk to animals just like I can talk to plants. Naruto nodded, having already learned that Momo could talk to plants. Boy had he been confused the third day she had been in his house when she said that the houseplants liked him. He still didn't get it really. How can plants talk to her when they aren't intelligent? Or is it more a feeling thing? He's just going to stop thinking about it. Laying on his back while looking at the sky, Naruto asked curiously, so what should we do now? I don't really feel like doing any dodging practice. Momo smiled mischievously. She quickly leaned over till her face was just above Naruto. She then said in a sensuous voice, I think I might have an idea. Naruto grinned at that and lifted his head slightly as he replied softly, really? What are you thinking? I'm thinking, Momo said softly as the lips of the two grew closer. Just as their lips were millimeters apart, Momo drew back with a wide grin and exclaimed, that we should do some extra reading. Naruto blinked at her with wide eyes. He then blurted out, you can't do that. Momo smirked as she stood up and asked innocently, do what? Naruto jumped to his feet and pointed at Momo as he replied indignantly, tease me like that. I think I just did. Naruto blinked in shock at the response and sly smirk on Momo's face. So this is what they call a tease. Well, Naruto isn't going to take that lying down. After all, Momo had all but confessed to him earlier. So he no longer had to worry about doing something she didn't want. He no longer had to sit by while she set the pace. Stepping towards her, Naruto growled out, true, you did. Too bad I'm not going to just take it. I'm going to have to punish you for being so naughty. Naruto, you perv, Momo teased while blushing slightly. She then turned and playfully started running away. Naruto grinned before following. It wasn't much of a contest between Naruto and Momo when it came to speed. Even if Naruto wasn't anywhere close to the fastest in his class, Devolukians have a greater predisposition for power than speed. It was a game between them though, both laughing as they did the chase. Naruto soon had her pinned to the tree, one of his hands holding her wrists above her head. Momo squirmed and struggled lightly, not really trying. Naruto would find it difficult to match her strength with both of his arms, much less one. She wasn't really struggling though, only struggling slightly to keep up the play. She then looked at Naruto before commenting, looks like you caught me, Naruto. What are you going to do now? Punish me? Naruto just smirked as he replied, I don't know. I should, but what should I do? He then started moving his face closer to hers as he whispered, spank you? Maybe tie you up and put you in timeout? Or maybe, something else. By his last words, his lips were millimeters from hers. Momo immediately purred out sensuously, while all of those sound fun. I like the sound of the last one. Something else it is. I think I have the perfect thing in mind, Naruto replied in a husky voice. Their lips were just about to touch. And Naruto felt something collide with the side of his head with such force that it was a miracle that his head didn't go flying like a football. A sickening sound from the impact rang out before he was launched to the side with ridiculous force though, spinning uncontrollably. Naruto went at least 20 yards before he even touched the ground, and even then his momentum continued for another 10 yards before he came to a stop in a motionless heap. Momo blinked in astonishment. One moment Naruto had finally taken the lead and something wonderful was about to happen, and the next it was like Naruto had been hit by a cannon. Looking over to see what sent her boyfriend, lover, boy toy flying, she immediately exclaimed without any thought, "Zaston?" Yes, it was Zaston who booted Naruto in the head so hard that it was a surprise Naruto's head was still attached to his body. In his defense though, he hadn't really known what was going on. He had arrived barely 10 minutes ago to this world, with a ship going to follow and stay in orbit till he called it. He had resigned himself to a long search for Princess Momo. Instead he stumbles into a clearing and sees her. His fury had immediately risen when he saw the situation she was in. He saw a boy chasing Momo before pinning her to a tree. While Momo had her struggling arms pinned above her, the boy then had appeared about to steal a kiss from his charge. His response had then been pure instinct. He rushed forward and booted the offender in the head. Zaston took a breath as he saw the motionless form of the boy. He felt a small flash of guilt at the sight. He hadn't meant to put his full strength behind that shot, but he had literally reacted on his soldier instincts. The boy was probably dead. You don't take a full power shot from a trained Devolukian without serious damage. A shot to the head like that probably broke his neck and cracked his skull. The guilt was quickly washed away though. The boy was trying to take advantage of Princess Momo. He deserved even worse than death in his opinion. Zaston then turned to Momo, who was still far too shocked to really react. He muttered in relief, "Thank goodness you are all right, princess." That caused Momo to finally snap out of her shock. Her head snapped to the side to look at Naruto's unmoving body. She quickly screamed in horror while moving towards Naruto. "Zaston, what have you done?" Zaston quickly moved and grabbed Princess Momo's wrist, easily holding the desperately struggling girl in place. He quickly asked in confusion, "I've come to pick you up. Why are you struggling so?" "I'm struggling because you might have killed Naruto, you baka. Now let me go," Momo cried out, trying to escape from Zaston's iron hold on her wrist. It was futile though. Zaston was a trained Devolukian. Even Lala couldn't overpower him if he really seriously tried. Zaston looked at her with his eyebrows scrunched in confusion. What was going on? Did Momo know that boy? Zaston opened his mouth to question her. This time it was he who got an unexpected interruption. His instincts flared, and he leaned his head back to avoid the shuriken that would have hit him in the temple. Sensing a new presence, Zaston looked down right in time to see a fist connect with his face. Truthfully, he could have dodged it. While he had been slightly surprised by the attack, he wasn't so rusty to have been unable to dodge an attack from such a slow opponent. It would take more than that to truly hit him. He didn't for one reason. He's assumed it wouldn't really affect him. Devolukian durability was just as high as their strength. A full power punch from the vast majority of species wouldn't affect him. So he felt no need to move his head out of the way. So he was surprised to actually find his head thrown back from the impact and stumbled back a few steps. He quickly recovered though. It hadn't truly hurt, but it had been hard enough to affect him at least a bit. Which is actually quite an accomplishment. That says the person who did it had quite a bit of raw power. He quickly looked at the one who accomplished such a feat. It was the boy he had kicked earlier, and the kid had very clearly not come out unharmed. A cut in his hairline was causing a trail blood to run down on side of his face. His orange clothing, what a garish color, was torn and covered in dirt from the tumble on the rocky ground. Zaston saw other signs that he was hurt from his previous attack though. His eyes were glazed over from the head injury, and he could easily see the wobbling in his stance. The kid was barely standing. The fact that he had managed to throw that weapon, a shuriken, what an odd choice of weapon, with such accuracy was clearly due to luck. The kid looked ready to fall over any second. Momo almost cried from relief at the sight of Naruto, managing to stutter out while holding back the sobs that had been about to flow from her just seconds before. Thank goodness, and Naruto. You're alright. So he was in very bad shape. If Naruto had been a normal person, he'd fight on the defensive. That was the logical thing to do. If he had done so, it would have probably allowed Momo to interrupt the fight. He was Uzumaki fucking Naruto though. He didn't back away from trouble like a coward. He ran towards it head on like a bull. That was his automatic response to being pressured in a fight, developed from hundreds of spars with his classmates where his only chance was overwhelming his classmates with his inhuman durability and stamina. In this case behaving like a rational person would have ended far better. Reaching towards his weapons pouch, Naruto quickly threw his hand out to throw 5 shuriken at the man opposite him. He then followed, hoping to catch the man when distracted by the metal stars of death were heading towards him. Zaston just responded with almost contemptuous ease. While not used to dealing with shuriken, Zaston had fought plenty of people far more skilled at this boy who used other forms of ranged weapons. The weapons weren't aimed with the intent of making it harder to dodge, they just came randomly. It was simple for him to slip between them. His hand then shot forward faster than Naruto could hope to dodge, intending to finish this now. When his punch landed though, it only destroyed a log as opposed to the boy's jaw. Zaston just blinked in befuddlement at the log that his punch had half obliterated. It was his instincts that forced him to react to the presence he felt at his back. He automatically grabbed the hilt at his side, and unleashed the green energy blade from it while spinning around. His stroke easily cut through the kunai Naruto had been planning to stab into his shoulder. The stroke then continued till hit Naruto's side. It sliced through like butter, creating a diagonal cut in the left half of Naruto's stomach. Things seemed to slow down to the group. Naruto's mouth opened in a gasp of pain at being half bifurcated, his eyes bulging in shock. Momo screamed. Zaston's eyes widened before he regained control. He'd reacted on instinct to feeling someone trying to stab him in the back and had gone for a killing stroke. Time seemed to restart. Naruto fell to the ground limply, puking up blood as his body finally registered that half of his waist had been cut through. At least 2 vital organs as well. He immediately felt his body going numb and his vision darkening. Momo ran forward in an attempt to reach Naruto, but was once again stopped by Zaston grabbing her wrist. She once again struggled, although this time it was almost hysterical. She literally clawed at Zaston's hand, trying to force him to release her out of pain as she shrieked, "Let me go. You killed him." "No, Naruto." Normally, Zaston would have reacted very differently. He genuinely cared for all 3 princesses, having helped raise them since they were little more than toddlers. To see one acting so outrageously while clearly in pain would have alarmed him. He would have done everything he could to calm her down. This wasn't just business as usual though. He'd spent 3 weeks worrying while imagining all the terrible things that could befall Momo outside of his protection. That had stressed him out immensely. He then starts looking for her and, from his point of view, prevent her from being taken advantage of. He then engaged in a fight, albeit a short one, where he had accidentally killed a boy no older than Momo. In conclusion, he had finally reached his breaking point from all the stress and emotional turmoil. Gripping her wrist hard enough to force a cry of pain from Momo, he exclaimed harshly, "Stop struggling. You have gone too far this time, Princess Momo. I have been ordered to return you, and I will not hesitate to knock you out in order to do that. I am not in any mood to deal with your antics." Momo looked to collapse inward at his words, sobbing uncontrollably. He quickly reached for her with his other hand, hardening himself to complete his job despite her tears. This time, Zaston could not claim to have been able to dodge. This punch had both the surprise factor and the speed to truly catch him. And it had the power to send him backwards. It was accompanied by a hoarse voice roaring, "Don't touch her." Zaston cursed as he recovered. He smoothly rolled backwards and retook his feet. He then looked in shock to see the Naruto standing above Momo, glaring at him with his now crimson-slit eyes. Zaston gaped. How the hell was the boy alive, much less standing? He'd definitely hit several major organs. Even if he had somehow missed, one does not just stand up while having such a large cut in their side. Their bodies go into shock, shut down to try and perform emergency action to stop the bleeding. He was even better than before. He was definitely faster to have managed to truly hit Zaston, and he was stronger too. The previous shot of the boy had just been enough to throw his head back and force him to stumble backwards slightly. This one had enough power to force him to fall into a roll, or else he would have fallen flat on his hindquarters. He even felt some pain from the cheek the punch had connected to. It had to be due to the change in his eye colors. Some species have a berserk state that they enter when injured. That had to be it. A last-ditch shot of adrenaline. That thought was thrown out though when a sort of red energy seemed to start appearing from different parts of Naruto's body. Soon he was enveloped in a cloak of red energy. A few seconds later it shaped itself to form 2 rabbit ears on his head and a tail formed extending from his tailbone. Zaston's eyes widened as he felt the pure power radiating from the boy. It was massive and powerful. His soldier instincts quickly kicked in though. He got into a stance while activating his blade. He had to take this seriously now. The pure bloodlust and hatred he felt emitting from the boy showed this was not going to be pretty. Growling, Naruto leapt forward at a far faster speed than he was normally capable of. Zaston spun out of the way before slicing with his blade towards Naruto's side again. His attack connected, but he quickly felt the difference. Before he had sliced through like butter. This time he felt the resistance. The cloak itself was resisting his blade. Energy blades were supposed to be capable of easily slicing through metal, as shown when he sliced the boy's kunai easily earlier, but this cloak was putting up a challenge. Zaston grunted and put more power into the strike, finally cutting through the cloak to cut flesh again. A large wound was left on Naruto's side, but he didn't stop for an instant. Changing direction, Naruto leapt at Zaston like a wild animal. Zaston was taken by surprise and took a heavy blow into his side, but his armor protected him from most of the damage. He just grunted and reacted with a swing of his sword toward the arm used to punch him. The cloak once again resisted, and Zaston once again managed to overcome it. His strike would have removed Naruto's left hand at the forearm, but Naruto showed impressive reflexes in this state by tilting his arm to avoid most of the damage. A large cut was still left on his forearm. Naruto responded by lashing out a spin kick that Zaston blocked with an arm. The kick still had enough power to send him sliding back a few feet. A small lull happened in the fighting. Naruto was breathing heavily, his face showing some clear pain. Zaston watched with wide eyes the two wounds he had dealt him in the past exchange rapidly healed with only some steam resulting. High-speed regeneration. That makes things a lot more complicated, although it explains why the boy was still alive after his earlier wound. Zaston then saw something out of the corner of his eyes. He looked in disbelief as the armor on his arm he had blocked with, melted. Maybe disintegrated was a better description for what happened. Looking at the side he had been punched at earlier, he saw the same thing had happened earlier. That red stuff was corrosive. Thank goodness he was wearing armor. Zaston could imagine the horrible burns that stuff could do to skin if his armor was this damaged by it. Zaston looked back at Naruto, who looked about to start again. Zaston tightened his jaw. Despite himself, he could feel his Devolukian blood rising at the idea of a fight with such a dangerous opponent. Despite his current job, Zaston had been one of the top warriors in the Devolukian military during the Galaxy Unification War. To go from that to basically babysitting 3 rebellious girls had certainly bothered him. So he couldn't help but feel somewhat excited at the thought of facing his first strong opponent in over a decade. The next exchange will end it, Zaston decided. He'd gotten the resistance of the cloak down, and knew how much strength was needed to compensate. The high-speed regeneration would make all but the worst wounds not important, so he would have to deal a wound even it couldn't deal with. The boy seemed to be fighting on instinct, and thus there were plenty of holes in his attacks. One exchange was all that he needed. It was a shame that the fight wouldn't last longer. The boy had plenty of power, but he clearly didn't know how to best use it. At least his Devolukian blood would be satisfied after defeating such a strong opponent. Naruto roared as he jumped forward, throwing a clawed hand towards Zaston's throat. Zaston reacted and swung his blade. Wound his hand or deflect the attack before finishing with a cut to his exposed head and neck. The exchange was stopped before it could begin. A pair of hands grasped both of their wrists. The one holding Naruto's gave a powerful tug and then pulled down to wreck his balance. The result was him flying through the air while flipping uncontrollably. He soon collided back first with a boulder, cracking it and falling to the ground. Stunned, the one holding Zaston's wrist just stopped his strike, not doing anything else. Zaston's eyes flickered to this person in astonishment. He had clearly been focused on his opponent, but the fact that he hadn't detected this person spoke volumes of his abilities. It was a tall and rather muscular man dressed in a green jumpsuit, orange leg warmers, and a lighter green vest that was unzipped. Otherwise he had a bowl haircut, incredibly thick eyebrows, and rather defined cheekbones. The man was shaking out the hand that had come into contact with Naruto's cloak. Zaston then had to stop himself from jumping when he felt an arm drape over his shoulder. He looked to his other side to see a man with spiky silver hair and a face mask reading a book he held in his left hand. His other arm was draped over Zaston's shoulders. The sharp edge of a blade pressed to his throat also told Zaston the man had a knife in his hand. Zaston then felt the second strongest aura he had ever encountered, second only to the king's. Zaston slowly turned to look at a rather old and small man slowly walking towards them. The man was wearing white and red robes that included a rather ornate hat with the kanji for fire on it. The old man had gray hair and a small goatee, along with a number of liver spots. The man had a pipe in his mouth. The main thing Zaston cared about was the incredibly powerful aura coming from the man. The very air felt heavy. While not as hatred-filled as Naruto's chakra cloak, the energy he was emitting was stronger and far more controlled. Zaston could say without a shadow of a doubt that the man was far stronger than him, even if he hadn't been rusty from a decade of inactivity. Looking at the other two men, Zaston also decided these two were as well, if by a smaller margin. Distracted or not, the two had snuck up on him. He could also feel powerful auras from them, although they clearly weren't flexing them like the older man was. The Hokage's eyes scanned the area, taking in Kakashi and Guy restraining the armored man wielding an energy sword that looked even more advanced than the Raijin. To Momo, who by now looked emotionally exhausted by all that had happened in the last few minutes. Finally stopping on Naruto, who was rising from the ground where he had been thrown by Guy. The entire village had felt the use of the Kyuubi's chakra. He had quickly called the two ninjas he had the most confidence in being able to handle an out-of-control Naruto before rushing towards where they felt the energy originating from. Although surprised Naruto had managed to draw a tailed cloak the first time he used it, he quickly recovered. The man no doubt had something to do with it. Sighing, Hiruzen looked at Naruto and ordered in a powerful voice while flexing his chakra, "Naruto, calm down. Everything is fine." The Kyuubified Naruto looked at Hiruzen. Hiruzen almost felt like he would attack, but was relieved to see recognition spread across the Jinchuriki's face. The cloak oh so slowly dissipated, leaving a battered and exhausted Naruto. The Jinchurikis wobbled before falling backwards. Hiruzen moved quickly and managed to catch Naruto before he hit the ground. Naruto looked at the Hokage through bleary vision before managing to rasp out, Momo. Rest, Naruto. Momo's fine. I've got everything under control, Hiruzen reassured the exhausted Naruto. Thank the sage, Naruto whispered before he was out like a light. Hiruzen sighed as he lifted Naruto up in his arms. This was so much easier when Naruto was a small tyke. Hiruzen had always been below average size, much less now when he was old and decrepit. Carrying a teenager a bit larger than him wasn't the easiest thing. Looking at the situation, he sighed again. And he had to clean up this mess. Crap, it was no slow awakening for Naruto. 1 second he was dead asleep, and the next he sat up while looking around rapidly. What happened? Where was he? He remembered fighting against this guy with armor. He'd been cut bad. Next, it all went fuzzy. He's pretty sure he continued fighting, but he really couldn't be sure. In his panicked examining of the room, Naruto saw a flash of pink from the bottom of his eyes. Looking down, Naruto saw a sleeping Momo resting her head on the bed he was laying in. Confused, Naruto leaned forward and shook her shoulder. She resisted slightly, wanting to continue sleeping, but she soon sat up while cutely rubbing her eyes. She then looked around groggily. The second her eyes alighted on Naruto, she shot forward while screaming his name. Naruto froze when Momo's arms circled him in a desperate hug. She also buried her head in his chest. He blinked, perplexed by her actions. He then felt through his chest vibrations. Looking down, Naruto's eyes widened when he realized Momo was crying. "It's all right, Momo. You're safe. Just let it all out," Naruto whispered soothingly while wrapping his arms around her crying form. He had no idea why she was crying, but he'd seen parents do this to their children when crying. Just hold them close and whisper reassuringly to them. After a minute when it seemed she had calmed down, he tentatively questioned, "Why are you crying, Momo? What happened?" Momo reacted far more animatedly than he had expected. She pulled back out of his hug, showing her less than perfect appearance. Momo almost always gave an immaculate appearance. Everything perfect. Even when she had the just out of bed look, it was so perfect it almost seemed like she specifically did herself up to give that impression. So it was a shock to see her current state. Her eyes were red and puffy, clearly having been crying. Her hair was askew, and her nose was even running slightly from when she had been crying into his chest. Naruto was snapped out of his stunned observation of her when Momo screamed at him, "What happened? I thought you died. Twice. Then you were covered in some red energy, and started fighting Zaston. I was terrified, Naruto. I thought I lost you." Momo ended softly while pulling him into a hug again. Naruto just thought about what she said in surprise. So the fight had happened. He'd been cut. Apparently he'd then been covered in a red energy. Naruto stiffened slightly when he realized what that meant. Shaking his head, Naruto focused on Momo again. Hugging her again, he whispered to her in concern, "I'm sorry, Momo. I never meant to worry you like that. I know you didn't, but you still did, Baka," Momo mumbled with her face still buried in her chest. Not really sure how to respond, Naruto just held Momo. Momo seemed to quickly calm down, but the two stayed like that for a while yet. The experience had been quite traumatic for the both of them, and so both were thankful for the opportunity to draw comfort from the other. It had to end eventually though. Momo pulled away slowly and started rubbing her eyes, trying to dry up her tears and clean her face from the signs that she had been crying. Naruto took the opportunity to look around the room again. Now that he was more coherent, it was clear he was in the hospital. The white, everything gave it away. By the sage, did he hate hospitals? Looking back at Momo, Naruto asked, "What happened? I really don't remember much after I was cut." Momo shook her head before explaining slowly, clearly not exactly happy to be thinking about it. "Zaston was about to take me away, but then you jumped in and hit him. You were then covered in some red energy. You and Zaston then started fighting so fast I couldn't even keep up. Then 3 men appeared out of nowhere and stopped you. I recognized one as the Hokage. He then took you to the hospital. I can't exactly remember much beyond that point either. The doctors said I was in shock." She ended in an embarrassed tone. For someone who prided herself on her control, to be seen in such a distraught state by the doctors wasn't something she hoped to ever repeat. Even that episode a few minutes ago with someone she truly cared about was something she wasn't exactly proud about. Losing control of herself wasn't something she was happy about. Not at all. "I see," Naruto replied gravely. The idea of Momo suffering from shock because of his actions didn't sit well with him. Seeing it wasn't something Momo wanted to talk about, Naruto asked, "So what is the verdict for me? And how long has it been?" Momo gratefully latched onto the change in subject and informed him, "Well, it has been 4 hours since we were brought here." Naruto blinked and looked out the window to see it was pitch black outside. The sun had just been about to set when the fight happened, so that fit. He quickly turned to Momo and repeated, "And my injuries?" Momo quickly took a clipboard from the end of his bed and read off it. "You were actually almost fully healed when you arrived. Whatever that red energy was, it healed most of your more serious injuries. You just had mild chakra exhaustion and an overused chakra system. It seems that red energy is very intensive, whatever it was." After a full examination, including from a Byakugan, they found several signs of recently healed injuries. 2 bones in your hand appeared to have been cracked, you suffered a concussion, one of the vertebrae in your neck was dislocated, and you received several deep cuts from Zaston's sword. All that is healed though. The wound you received before that red energy appeared couldn't be fully healed though." She ended in a hesitant voice. Blinking, Naruto looked down. Pulling the hospital gown he was wearing out of the way, Naruto looked at where he had been cut earlier. There was a scar. The white scarred tissue stood out against his tanned skin. It looked to have been a very clean cut by how thin the scar was, but it made up for that with how long it was. The scar started right next to the top of his abs on the left side. It then trailed down to the top of his left hip. He then felt with his hand as it extended on his back, going back up higher on the back. That cut had been a through and through. Just under half of his waist had been cut through. Naruto looked at it for a moment before bursting out with, "This looks totally badass." Momo blinked as Naruto raved about how every totally awesome ninja had a few scars. Her mouth quickly formed into a smile. "That is just like Naruto. Big scar on his side, immediate response is to declare it a sign of his awesomeness." She liked that about him. Although he had become quieter and more controlled since she had arrived, that didn't change his optimistic nature. As long as it didn't have to do with Anko, Naruto seemed to always think the best of everything. The only reason Anko was excluded was that she sort of terrified him. Naruto slumped against his pillow after finishing his little episode. Breathing deeply, he looked over at Momo. He quickly grew serious and announced, "I think it is time we had a talk, Momo, since it is clear that you know this, Zaston." Momo flinched slightly and broke eye contact. Taking a deep breath to gather her courage, she muttered while still not looking at him, "Yeah. I guess we should. Zaston is actually the bodyguard of my sisters, and I see the truth is that I've been lying to you about my origin and why I am currently here." "Really? I never would have guessed," Naruto replied sarcastically. He then continued when Momo shot him a shocked look. "Well, your story about being on vacation never seemed to fit. If you were on vacation, you probably would have a parent or supervisor of some sort. It was also pretty clear you were high-born. You just have the bearing and manner matching that of nobles that I've seen. Not to mention you claimed your father was likely the strongest Devolukian to exist and your mother being a diplomat." Momo shook her head ruefully. Another example that Naruto was far more cunning and intelligent than he appeared to be. It also reinforced her earlier thoughts that Naruto chooses to accept lies than question them. Even though he knew she was lying and keeping stuff from him, he just calmly accepted it, hoping she'll eventually come clean on her own. "Yeah, my family is a bit more important than I alluded to before," Momo began hesitantly. She took a breath before bursting out, "My father is king of Devoluk." It took a few seconds for Naruto's brain to make the connection. Momo's father is king of Devoluk. The king of Devoluk initiated the Galaxy Unification Wars, and became emperor of the Milky Way galaxy. Daughter of a king means, Momo is a princess. Momo is princess of the entire galaxy. Naruto just stared at her with wide eyes, absolutely speechless. He'd figured that Momo's family was rather important. He did not think they were the most important and powerful family in the galaxy though. Momo peeked at the speechless Naruto nervously, unsure of what to expect. Eventually growing tired of the shocked look, Momo began slowly, Naruto?" Naruto blinked and forced himself to start speaking slowly, "King of Devoluk. So that means you are the third princess of Devoluk," Momo finished nervously. "Okay," Naruto replied blankly. Momo blinked before repeated in a somewhat upset voice, "Okay. That's all you have to say." She was somewhat dreading his response, and all she gets is, "Okay." She at least wanted something more than that. Naruto shrugged before clarifying bluntly, "What? It really hasn't totally sunk in yet, but I really don't think I'll freak out. I could rant and rave about you keeping things from me, but that won't change anything. It's better to just accept it and move on." Momo just stared at him, disbelieving. After a moment though, a giggle burst from her lips. Soon she degenerated into a fit of giggles. Her arms held her stomach as she tried to bury her face in the bed to muffle her giggles. Naruto tilted his head, perplexed by her sudden fit of laughter. He finally asked, what's so funny, Momo?" Momo took a moment to stifle her giggles, wiping the tears that had leaked from her eyes. She then exclaimed with a smile, "I'm just laughing 'cause I should have expected that reaction. You really are the only guy who would just casually accept that the girl you've been living with for 3 weeks is princess of the galaxy." A moment of shock before casual acceptance. "You really are one of a kind, Naruto." Naruto grumbled out, not so sure how to respond. He finally managed to force out in a questioning tone, "Thank you." Momo's response was cut off when a knock came from the door. Momo quickly got up and answered it, revealing a masked Anbu. The Anbu took note of the awake Naruto before announcing, "I was sent to check on Uzumaki-san. I was also ordered to bring you two to the Hokage's office if he was awake. He needs to talk to you both." Naruto and Momo nodded, expecting this would happen. As Naruto prepared to get off the bed to stand, he noticed his hospital robes. He quickly turned to the Anbu and questioned, "Is there any way I can change before going?" The Anbu nodded tersely before informing him, "Yes. There is an outfit prepared to you on the table. You have 2 minutes." Both the Anbu and Momo left the room and closed the door behind them. Naruto looked to see the Anbu was right. A small pile of clothes was sitting on the table. Naruto quickly pulled them on before leaving the room. Naruto quickly grumbled out to the Anbu, "Could you guys have given me more boring clothes?" "Don't say that, Naruto. You look pretty good," Momo replied as she looked him over. He had been given a black pair of ninja sandals, black cargo pants, and a dark blue, long-sleeved shirt. She quickly added after a moment of thought, although they are a little bit on the dull side. I know, right? They need some orange. A little pizzazz, you know, Naruto eagerly stated. Momo nodded, thinking. While Naruto's typical orange jumpsuit took it a bit too far, brighter colors did suit Naruto more. Black and dark blue were too dark and dull for Naruto's typically bright personality. A splash of orange on white would probably work best. Maybe silver or gold, even some bright crimson would work well. With the growth Naruto had displayed in the past few weeks, he was going to have to go shopping soon for clothes. When that happened, Momo was going to make sure that he got the outfits that successfully bring out and emphasize many of the handsome features he has that most people ignore due to his too bright jumpsuit. The Anbu cut in before Momo could respond. Putting a hand on each of their shoulders, he shunshined them away. The two experienced around 10 seconds of extremely fast movement that left them disorientated. When they finally came to a stop, both of them wobbled. Naruto quickly grabbed Momo's shoulder to make sure she didn't fall. Naruto had more experience with handling a shunshin, even if he was still vulnerable. Even the Anbu wasn't immune to the inevitable disorientation from a shunshin based on the fact that he took 4 seconds to recover before he jumped into the shadows of the room. Once the two recovered, they looked at their surroundings. Naruto immediately recognized the Hokage's office. The Hokage was seated in his usual spot behind his desk, but it was the other person in the room that caught Naruto's attention. Zaston was currently seated in one of the chairs before the Hokage. Naruto quickly narrowed his eyes at him. Even knowing that it was a misunderstanding, Naruto still fully realized this guy had almost killed him. A bit of resentment and tension was still there. Based on how Zaston returned his glare, he was feeling it too. Now, there will be no fighting in here. Naruto, Momo. Please sit down, Hiruzen said with it clearly being an order. Naruto and Momo quickly sat. He then took a moment to light up his pipe and take a few puffs before he turned to Momo and said, "Firstly, I want to state how happy I am to have the third princess of the galaxy here. This is certainly not how I expected us to be introduced, but I also want to thank you for taking care of Naruto for the past 3 weeks." Momo nodded automatically, although Naruto reacted more animatedly. Standing to his feet, Naruto burst out by asking, "What? You knew? You underestimate me, Naruto," Hiruzen claimed calmly before continuing with a smirk. "You really think I wouldn't have heard when the entire town is talking about how you got a cute girlfriend?" Naruto just gaped before asking, Then why didn't you do anything? I would have thought you would disapprove. That's why I haven't come here to talk to you since Momo arrived." Hiruzen just chuckled, "It was really none of my business. Once I made sure Momo was staying with you of her own free will, I was content to wait until you came to talk to me about your alien guest." Naruto choked before pointing at him and exclaiming, "And how do you know about aliens? You even called Momo the third princess earlier." Momo now paid closer attention. She had been sort of dazed by Naruto's attitude. While he was a loud and exuberant person, the fact that he speaks so bluntly and rudely to the leader of the village shows the two are comfortable with each other. She's heard about it from Naruto, but to see it was a different thing. Now she was curious about how the Hokage knew about aliens, instead of just assuming her tail was an accessory like everyone else who had noticed it. "You are still underestimating me and Konoha, Naruto," the Hokage claimed while calmly puffing on his pipe before continuing. "In fact, Konoha has known about the existence of aliens since the Second's reign, even if it hasn't become common knowledge. It seems that this planet has become a somewhat popular safe haven from refugees fleeing war, famine, planet downsizing, and other things of that nature. Konoha and Fire Country in particular due to our nicer image. So we've long since known about the galactic community, even if we aren't yet a part of it." Naruto just gaped. "What?" Seeing Naruto wasn't going to say anything, Hiruzen continued mirthfully, "In return for our protection, many of the refugees keep us up to date on the current affairs of the galactic community, along with other useful information. So I knew that Momo here was a Devolukian since I saw her tail through my crystal ball when I first heard, although I admit I did not ascertain her identity as a member of the Devolukian royal family. We have had little need to become familiar with such things besides the obvious." Naruto once again didn't know how to respond. Thinking on it, he should have expected this. With all the rumors spreading and with that damned pervert, wet dream crystal ball of his, it would have been extremely simple for the Hokage to check up on him. Despite knowing that now though, it didn't change the fact Naruto hadn't even thought about that. Too much had happened today. It was too much to fully absorb. Hiruzen smirked at the look on Naruto's face. He quickly grew serious though as he announced, "Now, we need to sort out this mess we found ourselves in." Seeing an opportunity, Momo quickly bowed her head as she burst out, "I'm sorry. This is all my fault. Staying with Naruto, not telling anyone of my station and birth. Everything. I really didn't mean for it to turn out this way. I never expected Naruto and Zaston to start fighting. I sincerely regret all the trouble my actions have caused." The Hokage quickly lifted a hand to stop Momo before he calmly informed her, "While some fault rests on your shoulders, Princess Momo, you could not have expected things to turn out this way. Sometimes things just spin out of control. Like Naruto and Zaston fighting. Zaston is clearly a trained soldier, and Naruto is being trained as a ninja. Both are trained to defend themselves automatically. A small misunderstanding like what happened could easily set them off. It wouldn't have been so bad if they were more evenly matched. Momo could have stopped them if given more time. Unfortunately, they weren't evenly matched. Zaston was at least Junin level. It had only taken one exchange each time for Zaston to handily defeat Naruto. Even with Naruto using the Kyuubi's chakra, it would have only taken Zaston 2 exchanges to finish Naruto. The fights had been over before Momo even had a chance to step in. Momo still claimed stubbornly, "I still wish to apologize for all the trouble I've caused." Hiruzen chuckled at her behavior, and quickly announced, "Then I accept your apology, Princess Momo. Now think no more of it." Zaston coughed to gain their attention before declaring, "I thank you for your understanding in this situation, Lord Hokage, but I still have to fulfill my orders." Despite the apparent relationship between Princess Momo and this boy, my orders from His Majesty are to bring her back to the castle. Even these revelations cannot change that. I must now complete that mission. What? You can't do that. Naruto burst out while springing to his feet. The rush of emotions that hit him at the idea of Momo leaving was too chaotic for him to really understand, but he knew he didn't like it. Not one bit. "Calm down, Naruto," the Hokage ordered sternly before Zaston could refute Naruto's thoughtless claim. He quickly informed Naruto seriously, "Unfortunately, there is nothing you or I can do. Keeping Momo from her father would only complicate the situation, and create the possibility of blood being shed over this. There is nothing you can do here, Naruto. Zaston has the right to take Momo with him, as he is acting on the behalf of both Momo's father and the Emperor of the Galaxy." Naruto looked at the Hokage with a betrayed look in his eyes. It stabbed at Hiruzen's heart, but he hardened himself. One girl wasn't worth the risk of bringing war down on the village. If he refused Zaston, Momo's father might very well view it as them kidnapping his daughter. And if there was one person in the galaxy that Hiruzen didn't want becoming Konoha's enemy, it was Gid Lucione Deviluk. The guy conquered the galaxy, and was capable of destroying planets. You don't get stronger than that. Zaston looked appeased by the Hokage's words. Someone else had a different idea apparently. Momo announced with a smirk, "Actually, Zaston isn't totally correct about that." That caused the three to look at her in confusion, causing her to smirk. With all that had gone wrong today, she was finally getting a chance to take a bit of control. "What are you talking about, Princess Momo? Even ignoring your father's position as king, he has total control regarding you as your parent," Zaston pointed out, rather alarmed by the carefree smile on Momo's face that said she had something up her sleeve. "I'm talking about the right of a suitor to house and provide for his fiancée after a betrothal has been established," Momo stated happily. Seeing Zaston's eyes widen, she eagerly continued, "I see you understand. Yes, it is true. Naruto proposed yesterday night, and I am happy to announce that I am hereby accepting his proposal. Thus, according to Devolukian law, Naruto has the right to demand my presence in his home." Now the trio was just staring at Momo, with mouths wide open in astonishment. Even Naruto, who was wondering just what she was talking about. When did he propose? The Hokage clearly thought the same thing, and turned to Naruto to ask with a raised eyebrow, "You proposed to her, Naruto? I must say I'm surprised. I definitely did not expect this twist." "What? No, I never proposed," Naruto stated, baffled by this turn of events. "Well, which is it? Did he propose or not?" Zaston demanded, looking between Momo and Naruto with confusion and irritation in his eyes. He likewise didn't expect this twist to happen, and it certainly fell out of his range of expertise. I think I understand the issue. Naruto proposed that way, Zaston, Momo declared before putting her cheeks in her hands while smiling giddily with a small dusting of pink on her cheeks. She then claimed, I can still feel his warm hands grabbing onto me, and giving a gentle squeeze. While Naruto and Hiruzen looked confused by her words, Zaston gasped in realization. After sending a rather sharp look in Naruto's direction, he explained hesitantly, I do see the issue now. I'm assuming this planet also follows the usual method of proposal practiced throughout the galaxy, namely a male getting on his knee and presenting a ring to a female. Unfortunately, Devolukian culture has a second method of proposal. This method requires a male to grope the s of a female. It is a method of proposal only considered legitimate among Devolukian nobility, of which Momo is a part. The jaws of Naruto and the Hokage would likely be sore tomorrow from how many times they dropped from shock. Groping the s of the female? Really? No doubt guessing their thoughts, Zaston coughed to hide his embarrassment before explaining, it is an old, archaic tradition. It only recently had a revival in use. Namely, Momo's father. He found it humorous and, well, gave it legal authority once again. Presenting a ring is still the preferred method. Zaston was rather embarrassed by the entire topic. It really was an old tradition. He still remembers how the queen scolded the king when she heard he had reinstated that tradition. He had done it when he was drunk simply because he thought it was a hilarious tradition after reading about it on the internet. This is actually the first time he's heard of the method being legitimately used since it was given legal standing again. The Hokage finally recovered. He turned his head to look at Naruto. After a moment of thought, he commented, I really didn't think you had it in you, Naruto. Good job. Since Naruto clearly hadn't known about that tradition, he must have groped Momo just for the sheer joy of it. Naruto very clearly understood what was going through the Hokage's head. Sputtering, Naruto stood up and pointed at Momo before exclaiming uncontrollably, it isn't like that. Momo ordered me to take a bath, and then walked in naked a few minutes later. She told me I was getting a reward for housing her for all this time, and literally placed my hands on her ass. Zaston and Hiruzen blinked at the story before turning to look at Momo. She just gave them a beatific smile packed with innocence that didn't match what Naruto had just claimed she did. The two of them sweat dropped. She tricked Naruto into marrying her, so just like any relationship then. With Zaston and Hiruzen both somewhat stunned by what she had done, Momo turned to Naruto, who looked rather helpless. She wanted to squeal when she saw the helpless and flustered on his expression. No, she had to control herself. She could think about how adorable Naruto looked when flustered later. She stood up and moved towards Naruto. She quickly slipped onto his lap without a single hint of hesitation. Positioning herself so that she was partly facing him, she wrapped her arms around his neck. She then asked with genuine curiosity, is that a problem, Naruto? She asked that seriously, despite the very seductive actions she had done right before it. She really was curious on what he thought. It had been the easiest way to ensure she could stay with Naruto without having to outright tell him about her situation. Manipulate him into proposing in a way that he didn't even realize he had done it. So when Zaston came, she could pull this off. Naruto did have a will and mind of his own though. Maybe he didn't like her doing that. It's even possible, no matter how unlikely, that he doesn't have any feelings for Momo that would make the thought of marrying her acceptable. It would hurt, but if he really didn't want to be with her she wouldn't force him. She prayed that wasn't the case though. It's just, Naruto stuttered out before closing his mouth and thinking. He really had been caught off guard. Momo had basically confessed to him, but marriage? Naruto really hadn't even considered the idea of marriage. Even if it wouldn't be right away, it was a huge commitment. Did he not want to though? His life had gotten way better since Momo entered it, and Naruto could say he was genuinely happier than he had been before. Could he picture himself marrying Momo and having a family with her? He was going to ignore the whole princess of the galaxy thing, and all the issues that would inevitably cause. Did he want to marry Momo? Naruto finally opened his mouth and said with a soft smile while looking into Momo's eyes, no, not a problem at all. Momo felt her eyes watering at his answers, but she held them back. She just smiled back before kissing him. Naruto was surprised, but quickly returned it. After a few seconds, the two were interrupted by Zaston coughing. The two broke apart with blushes on their faces. Zaston just sighed before sternly stating, "Be that as it may, it isn't so easy. Because Momo is not yet an adult, she needs parental approval before the proposal is legitimate. So she must still come with me." "Actually, Zaston," Momo began with victory clear upon her face, "I have gotten parental approval from mother. You can even check in with her." Zaston just stared, incapable of responding. While Gid was king, legally his queen had just as much power over their children as him. The queen had also made it clear that she disagreed with the king's method for finding husbands for their children. With everything Momo had already done, it wasn't at all far-fetched to think she could contact the queen and get her permission. And if she had, then Zaston couldn't do anything right now. The king could probably still break the engagement, but until then Zaston can't do a thing. He finally sighed and admitted, "It seems you have me beat, Princess Momo. I shall leave for my ship, and inform the king of these developments." Momo grinned as she heard his words. She had done it. She had won. She was going to stay with Naruto, and once her father knew she was okay, he likely wouldn't care enough to go through the work of breaking off her engagement to Naruto. Zaston stood up and nodded to the Hokage as he told him, "I thank you for your cooperation and understanding, Lord Hokage. It was my pleasure. I also would request that you inform me of any developments in this case as quickly as possible. It would make dealing with this situation easier," the Hokage replied coolly. "Of course," Zaston said. He then turned towards Momo and Naruto. He nodded at them before continuing, "I apologize for our earlier misunderstanding, Lord Uzumaki. I also hope this relationship turns out well for you, Princess Momo. I really do. Now I shall take my leave." Zaston soon strolled out of the room. Naruto was slightly confused by the lord attached to his name, but after a second understood. He was now technically engaged to a princess. He could be considered nobility based on that alone. It was an incredibly weird thought for Naruto. The complete opposite of how he is used to being treated. The Hokage quickly spoke up, "A lot has happened today. You two must be tired. Go back to Naruto's house and sleep. I'll call you two tomorrow when some more developments have taken place." Naruto and Momo both nodded and stood up. The two walked out of the room. Once they left the Hokage's tower, they both started running through the empty streets so they quickly arrived at home. Once they entered, both were hit with a wave of exhaustion. Today had been both physically and emotionally exhausting for them both. Naruto quickly stripped off the clothing he had been given at the hospital, leaving him in a pair of boxers. He quickly grabbed his panda sleeping cap and moved towards the couch. He felt Momo touch his shoulder before he reached it though. Momo smiled at him and told him, "You can sleep on the bed with me." Naruto blinked at her in surprise. Since she had arrived, he'd given her use of the bed while he slept on the couch. Thinking about it, Naruto actually didn't see a reason why that should continue. They'd done more when Momo came into his bath, and they were apparently engaged now. So Naruto nodded towards Momo in acceptance. Momo smiled before walking into the bathroom to change. Naruto crawled onto the bed, relishing in the chance to sleep on a bed again. He relaxed for a minute before he heard Momo come out of the bathroom. She was using a button-up t-shirt and a pair of pink panties as her sleepwear, the outfit the same as what she had greeted him in yesterday. She smiled at him before crawling onto the bed next to him. Once she was level with him, Naruto wrapped his arms around her. She immediately snuggled into his chest before letting out a sigh of relief. She had always enjoyed sleeping with her sisters or her mother. The warmth of another's body simply couldn't be replicated with blankets. She had lamented when she reached an age where it became less common, and always secretly relished when Nana or Lala crawled into her bed at night. Naruto had a higher body temperature than her sisters, and Momo quickly decided that made it even more pleasant. The two didn't even contemplate doing anything naughty. Momo had been planning on sealing the deal with Naruto tonight before Zaston showed up, but Zaston had showed up. In the end, they were both just wanted to sleep. So the two quickly fell into a deep sleep in each other's arms. That's all for now. If you enjoyed, then please like, share and do comments.